you, everyone, for being at today's meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Jones, could you lead us, please? Before we begin, I just wanted to recognize we have a special group with us today, Wakefield High School AP Government class. Could you all... Thanks for being here. I hope you find it a good experience and you don't walk out of here going, those people are crazy. But anyhow, enjoy. We're really happy to have you here. Next, we have consent agenda. No items have been pulled. Do we have a motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. There was a lot on that consent agenda, too. Getting a lot done, so thank you on that. All right, next we have public comment. And if we could put that up, we'll call your number and ask that you come up. I'm going to call in groups of 3. Okay, could we have speaker 1, 2, and 4 please come up? Speaker 1, 2, and 4, if you could please come up. Is speaker 1, okay, not here? Mama Kai? Making her way.
It's another amazing day in paradise, y'all. Today I'm continuing the message I started last month. I ended by apologizing and will eventually come back to that. But today I want to get to the heart of why I'm here. During the swearing-in ceremony of the City Council, Mayor Baldwin celebrated the fact that this is the most diverse City Council in the history of the city. I want to add that the city is run predominantly by women. Mayor, white woman. City manager, black woman. Chief of staff, black woman. Chief of police, black woman. City attorney, black woman. The council is comprised of white women, a black man, members of the LGBT plus community, and the youngest person to win an election. P.S. Happy birthday month, Councilwoman Black. Yet many of the choices that have been made during this administration have been as though the city is still being run by the old boys club. Considering the collective history we have as being oppressed people for various reasons, I have been extremely disappointed by a lot of the decisions made by the city leaders. Many have come from recommendations by city administration and are incredibly punitive. From taking responsibility to change the length of council terms, to employing armed security and more square, to minimizing public comment, to the slow process of engaging conversation over a separation allowance for firefighters, to you fill in the blanks. The recommendations and eventual decisions have been punitive. The reason why is because it doesn't matter what the skin tone, gender, sexual orientation, etc. of the people. When you have not healed from the traumatic experiences of punishment you have endured from as far back as your early childhood, your mindset is going to be punitive. I don't have to know what people's life's experiences have been. It is evident in the way the city is being led. Please don't take this as an indictment. I hope it is an invitation to an awakening. To be continued. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 4. Is Haley here? Okay. Speaker 5, 6, and 7. Could you? Sarah here? Robert Courts? Okay, Robert.
I am Raleigh citizen Robert Courts, and I reside on Ashland Street. I'm here today to not only address the elected leaders and city management, but to also my fellow citizens. I am alarmed at the current state of Raleigh's fire department and am gravely concerned that we ask so much from these brave servants while providing them way too little in the required support. So I come here today to wholeheartedly endorse their request for separation allowance. I am concerned for and about the firefighters because, according to the city management, there are currently 38 vacancies in the fire department. However, no new positions have been added by the city in a decade of incredible growth in population, a decade of growth in many more and taller buildings throughout Raleigh, and a decade of annexations of our neighbors into the city. With a minimum of research, it is easy to determine that in order to meet national average staffing requirements, Raleigh Fire Department really needs 200 or more firefighters. An effective and affordable way to assist our firefighters is to grant their request for separation allowance. Simply put, separation allowance is a benefit for firefighters who have served for 30 years. It is approximately 25% of their final salary paid between the age of retirement and 62. Separation allowance will benefit Raleigh with recruitment tools and help retain the best of Raleigh's fire department. So I'll call upon my fellow Raleigh citizens to act now to contact all 4 of your elected representatives, mayor, 2 at large, and your district counselor, and ask about separation allowance.
Speakers 7, 8, and 9. If you could just give your name when you come up.
I'm Tia Burmy. Hello everyone, my name is Tia Burmy and I'm here on behalf of Consult Your Community at NC State to talk about our small business fair. A little bit more about our organization. Consult Your Community provides pro bono consulting services to women and minority-owned small businesses in the local Raleigh area, and we are a student-run nonprofit. In the last year, CYC organized our second small business fair, supporting over 30 local small businesses in various industries. We invited local vendors to NC State's campus to help reach college students and help students shop local right in their backyard. With support from Raleigh City Council this past year, we were able to cover entertainment, a portion of setup costs, pay for a local food truck, and most importantly, host the businesses free of charge. This event was held at Stafford Commons, a high-green traffic area on main campus right behind our student union, which fostered a sense of community within our NC State students. For 2025 Small Business Fair, we hope to expand the event to include more than 50+ local businesses, live music from local bands and student organizations, 2 to 3 local food trucks, a free sample fund for vendors, raffles and yard games, improve our interactive app and platform to connect attendees and vendors, and conduct additional marketing and communication materials. We are requesting $10,000 to enable expansion plans outlined above to help increase community engagement between attendees and vendors and facilitate a lively social environment. Thank you for your consideration and for investing in the success of small businesses in the Raleigh community.
Thank you. We will talk about that during when we have our mayor and council reports. Okay. Speaker 8.
I'm Summer Wisher. I'm an oral health advocate and the executive director of Wake Smiles, a nonprofit dental clinic serving your constituents that are under-resourced in Wake County and Raleigh. In 2023, we saw 900 individuals and we provided over $1.7 million in free dental care to our community. We had a patient named Christopher. He came to us. We saw a lesion on his throat. That lesion was biopsied because we have awesome collaborative relationships in our community, and it was done pro bono by an ENT, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 bilateral throat cancer. Within 3 weeks of us finding the lesion, he was able to get chemo and radiation. He's living a cancer-free life right now, And he is one person out of all of those people that we've served, and his story is successful because Wake Smiles exists. We are really trying to expand our clinic. We would like to have 2 more operatories, and we need you guys to allocate funds to help us do that. In 2023, we deferred $4.5 million of care to the ED. If you have non-traumatic dental pain and you go to the emergency department, you are told you have an infection. Let's do a CT scan. Let's give you antibiotics, but let's not solve the problem. And that turns into a $1,400 bill that you can't pay. Wake Smiles offers definitive solutions for you, and we give whole health care. We need Raleigh City Council to make a decision to allocate funds toward this one-time expansion that will allow us to see an increase of 40% more patients at Wake Smiles. Thank you for everything you're doing for our community. We know you care.
Can you be more specific in what you're asking for?
Yes, we are asking for $100,000.
That would have to go through a grant program.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
Apply for that. Okay, thank you.
Is she aware of our grant programs? We have human relations grant programs. They usually open up in the fall.
I am. I just wanted people to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're aware of that, no need for follow-up then,
Great.
right? Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Good evening, Octavia Rainey. I would first like to thank Dr. Harrison for all of your support in working with the 4th Ward Neighborhood Association. This is a project that I have been working on since 1977. I would like to say to you, you're making this dream come true, and we are very appreciative to you for that. The 4th Ward Association is from August the 25th to September the 1st. I have already received a meeting which I was setting up for the city manager to meet with 50 ministers. What has happened now, we're going to add that to the 4th Ward agenda now. So it's getting busy, and people are adding things to it all the time. But it's going to be a great, great event. And I would like to say, Dr. Harrison, thank you so much for believing in 4th Ward, but believing in me and believing in the neighbors. This has meant a lot, and they are very excited about working on 4th Ward, making sure that the city put 4th Ward in their budget, because it's just crucial. 4th Ward was the neighborhood that was destroyed without a trace. We got to get back to finding that trace. We have to. It is very important. And the meeting with the 50 ministers, all of them is going to talk about, and the theme of that meeting is going to be what happened to Black neighborhoods. And we're not only talking about in the inner city, we're going across the Beltline now. What has happened to those neighborhoods? And it is very important that we have that discussion. I am so grateful for the city manager agreeing to do that so we can have this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have to give a shout out to Carrie Painter with the Martin Marietta Center for the Performing Arts. She's on our team. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you to Michelle Bradley on your team. I know you all worked with Ms. Rady on a grant for a special event at the end of August, so I can't wait to see that whole week long of events go off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Speaker 10, 11, and 12.
I was speaker number 5. I came in a little late.
Could you wait until?
I just want to let you know.
Good afternoon. I have come here today to share an update on the harassment that I experienced in the city. A year ago, I came to gain support and assistance in shutting down the maltreatment that I was receiving in the warehouse district, bars, and local businesses. It took me a few times, but council followed up with the implementation of the public harassment clause, which unfortunately served me no good. I sought out numerous entities for assistance prior, pleading that they step in and back me, but most oftentimes were referred to police. Ironically, Raleigh Police Department's response was not reasonable or desirable. I was told there was nothing they could do. Their response was nonchalant and that they preferred not to be involved, did not believe in attacks, or just refused to be a vessel of safety and security for me. Numerous times, they became part of the problem and even tried to trespass me to eliminate it. I continue to be attacked. I believe it's acceptable because I'm Black, unhoused, and speak openly about this and other problems. Regardless how you feel personally, you must acknowledge the tone that this situation sets for the community, what it signifies to young women and young men alike about what is acceptable and allowed to fester and linger is wrong. We are living in a society that allows women to die who needed abortions, where childcare is not valued and the choice to cut funding will render more unemployed and therefore homeless, where sheriffs will act as ICE, as police in local jails, where tax dollars were allocated to vouchers for private schools where most children won't even be accepted. Project 2025 is an agenda that will come into effect if the MAGMA movement takes the White House in our November election. It gives the president absolute power, eliminates the front of action. It cut protections against the sex and gender class, against abortion. It will abolish the Department of Education, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and defund the Department of Justice, hold a tighter grip on FCC and FTC. It will shut down the EPA. The new government will eliminate nonpartisan agencies and will falsely be set upon Christian values. I believe my situation is only the beginning. Where one of us concerned, we are all concerned, and the nonsense will only be allowed to occur if not shut down. Thank you.
Speaker 11.
Yes, good morning. 33 years ago, my wife and I moved into our house on just off of Lead Mine Road, and our property butts up to Lead Mine. Then it was not a road that got a lot of traffic. It was not even extended over to Six Forks Road. It stopped at Strickland Road. And we did not notice a lot of speeding and that sort of thing. Well, last Monday, I had an experience that I will never forget. I pulled out from Deltona, which is on the Strickland side of Lead Mine, and was headed towards Sawmill Road. Did not see a vehicle behind me when I pulled out. Before I got to Vestavia on the right, there were 5 vehicles coming at a high rate of speed. I was going 55 miles an hour. All of them passed me on the right before we got up to Sawmill Road, and there was a stop. The stop light was there, so they all had to stop for it. What really woke me up is that I know that these people were going at least 70 to 80 miles an hour. We have walkers, we have runners, we have women pushing their babies and strollers. We have dog walkers. Lead Mine Road is a 2-mile section from Strickland Road up to Sawmill. If something's not done quickly, there's going to be a horrendous accident. I mean, we have accidents all the time, and by the way, to the best of my knowledge, I think there have been 3 traffic fatalities in that area, and the speeding is just out of control. We see very little policing, and something has got to be done to make Lead Mine Road in this section safer.
Thank you. City Manager, could we follow up on that, please? Okay. Speaker 12. Okay. Could we have Speaker 13, 14, and 15?
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Lee. I'm here today about the historic overlay in the Prince Hall District.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Okay, thank you. I'm very loud normally. I am Joseph Lee. I'm a member of the Prince Hall Lodge on Blunt Street. I also own the parking lot behind the Prince Hall Lodge. And I was told that I'm here because there's going to be a historical overlay there. And I'm concerned about that. In fact, I'm really glad it's going to be recognized for Prince Hall because I'm a member of that particular lodge. But also I know the neighbors behind the lodge as well as down the street. I am a past student of Shaw University. and I've been in Southeast Raleigh probably in and out of Southeast Raleigh probably all of my adult life. And I appreciate the overlay, but I think I would like for some of the restrictions not be so dominant in regards to the use of the property. I know there's, right now, the property is zone DX3. I would prefer it be larger. I have no immediate use for the property in regards to construction. I use it now as a parking lot, which I probably will continue to use it as a parking lot. But what I would hope is that the city will allow me to be more flexible in the use of the property. When you put that overlay on it, on that particular property, I'll have some restraints in that regards. So I prefer if the city would continue to let me stay in the historical district. I really appreciate that. But yes, still relax those restrictions in regards to future development of that property.
This is going to be a topic at our EDI committee meeting in June.
Yeah, if we can get your contact information, we
Okay.
have it, and we can make sure you're aware of that meeting because we're going to talk about this at our committee.
I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Helen?
Hi, I'm Helen Tart, 611 Monroe Drive, and that'll be, I hope people will remember that because I am collecting signatures for putting the 4-year terms that with staggered terms and a primary on the ballot. And I'm hoping that other people will do the same thing. I was very disappointed when the council just voted to not to go ahead and do the 4-year staggered terms with a primary without putting it on the ballot. And honestly, I haven't decided how I'd vote if you put it on the ballot, but you can still change your mind and put it on the ballot. But otherwise, if anyone is interested in signing the petition, I'll have a copy of it on my front porch at 611 Monroe Drive, which is near the corner of Glasscock and Brookside. And you won't even have to knock on my door if you don't want to. And but you can put your name down and your address, as long as you're a registered voter. You can, the Board of Elections will check it, and I'll take it to the Board of Elections. So I hope that anybody here that's interested will get in touch with me before I leave if they'd like to. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 15.
Hi, my name is Athena Wallen. I still live on Brookside Drive. I'm a little bit calmer today because last week I got to explain to you all the emotional side of what can happen with human error and cars and casualties or accidents. Today, I want to echo that sentiment and elaborate on how proposals like the one for Brookside Drive can still be changed to accommodate that concept of equity of visibility for public street use. Sorry, I'm still nervous about public speaking. Okay, but I also want to emphasize that this proposal alone is not enough to deter dangerous driving, and that the north cap of Brookside, where the proposed roundabout will be in the foreseeable or unforeseeable future, that is the area where traffic calming matters the most, because that is where all of the density of cars are moving and then filtering them down Brookside. What you're receiving the first quarter of Brookside from a driver's perspective heading southbound towards Glasscock is absolutely nothing to indicate that I should be looking for a pedestrian or a cyclist to the right of me until you get to Frank Street, and suddenly we should be expected to see other people. That portion of Brookside hasn't been discussed because we have put it off into other categories. It's the city's future project of some kind. But in reality, that is the most dangerous section of Brookside Drive, and it accommodates an apartment complex that no voices were heard, and it accommodates businesses that have to try to compensate for foot traffic. And I just want City Council to acknowledge that when you're trying to traffic calm, it starts
Okay, thank you.
more than the 2 blocks.
All right, speakers 16, 17, and 18.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Williams, and I'm just here to address some of the confusion that was expressed by Marianne and Marshall last week regarding the alternative response program. So the facts are that the city proposed funding for a call diversion line, a care navigation unit, and acorns. However, as I accurately stated last week, the city does not currently have a budget for the community crisis response team. Allocating $800,000 of our tax dollars to Acorns, which functions as an extension of Raleigh PD, causes safety concerns for community members. Raleigh PD has a history of violence, discrimination, and being incapable of adequately responding to situations involving mental health. Between 2013 and 2021, Black folks were 8 times more likely, and Latinx folks 2.9 times more likely to be arrested for low-level, nonviolent offenses than white folks. In 2022, Raleigh PD murdered 2 Raleigh residents who were in mental health crisis. In 2023, 30% of drivers stopped by RPD were white, but 53% were Black. 136 white drivers were searched by RPD, but over 1,000 Black drivers were searched. Every motorist that RPD used force against was Black. These statistics demonstrate why community members said they want a response unit that is separate from the police. The community response team must be prioritized for the 2025 fiscal year budget. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bria Perry, a member of Refund Raleigh, and here to also echo what Nicole just said. But I do want to say that, as many of you, almost everybody should at this point on City Council know, Refund Raleigh started to get into this process of developing an alternative crisis response program from our proposal that we sent to you all in August of 2023 to outline why Acorns was ineffective. This did not come just from us pulling those things out of the sky. It's because we talked and engaged with community members who we have built trust with, trust that is not shared altogether with City Council in the same way with the community. Since then, we have worked closely with the city's engagement team and other community organizations to build out a meaningful and community-centered community engagement process. 1,409 surveys were collected from December 2023 to March 2024 to solicit feedback from residents regarding the program. And then on April 16th, the survey data determined that Raleigh residents wanted a program that was truly independent from Raleigh RPD, from RPD. So I just want to acknowledge that while we are happy that that clinicians are being added to the ECC and peer support specialists, to the Housing and Neighborhoods Department, that's a step in the right direction. We're grateful for that. But we're missing the key ingredient that is the community response program. And it is very true that part is what's not being funded. That's the most integral part of the program. So I'm just here to say that we're going to continue to put pressure until that part of the program, which will make a holistic, fully funded program, is funded. You just heard from the lady, I believe her name was Nicole. We can't wait. We can't afford, our community can't afford to wait any longer. We've been fighting for this for years. We can't afford to keep pushing it back to later fiscal year budgets. We can't afford that.
Next. And then after Jen, we will have speaker number 5.
Thank you all for your time today. As National Police Week has just concluded, we, Shop Local Raleigh, a nonprofit with over 800 locally owned and independent business members, supports our first responders. And we want to encourage the Raleigh City Council and City Manager to approve the request from the Raleigh Police Department for a 15% salary increase across the board. As the capital city, the largest city in the county, and the city with the highest crime rate and most vacancies in the county, we are hiring officers with a pay scale that's behind 6 other municipalities in our county. Our Raleigh Fire Department is also asking for a separation gap pay to help with the recruitment, as they too are behind the other municipalities in starting pay. We ask that the request for these increases will be met. As a fast-growing city with large vacancies, we must put our first responders as a priority, and that comes with a salary that shows that Raleigh values these individuals that are running in when we are running out. Recruitment and retention is a problem in all of our public safety departments. May we please ask that we support this increase and staff fully our first responders and pay them for what they do for us. Thank you.
Okay, Speaker 5.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Sarah Quadri, Raleigh resident. I just wanted to thank Christina Jones for coming to our Raleigh Citizens Academy class. If a lot of you don't know, please join for the next cycle. It's a great class. There's also Neighborhood Academy, and Councilwoman Megan Patton told me about it first, so thank you so much. I learned a lot, and I met many community members that are coming up with great ideas to tackle many issues. An issue that's close to my heart that I would love for the city to keep in mind for the fiscal year is in dealing with homelessness. We need lots of shelters, but more than that, a project that I came up with was to do a community fridge where we would keep a fridge open. And I've talked to the person in charge at Morris Square Park, and I would love to connect with the city manager because he had some questions about what the city would allow for us to keep the fridge where, and if a shed option to keep the fridge open is safe. And I would love to work with the city manager as well with Moore Square and other places. I'm also working with Raleigh Rescue Mission and getting this going, partnering with them. So this is something that is a dire need, especially with so many encampments closed. A lot of people don't realize that it's not just winter months that's harsh on the unhoused population, but it's also the summer months with extreme heat. And Moore Square is such a central location, would be a great place to get it started. And sadly, we have so many resources we can use, but we're not utilizing them properly. So I would love to work with the city on this. And, you know, we've heard from so many other responses. And definitely another thing that I've learned from my classmates was that there's not enough citizen engagement. So we can work on that as well. And if we didn't send our money to fund bombs and wars, we could fund all of this. Free Palestine.
City Manager, will you follow up on that? Thank you. Okay, that is the completion of public comment. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Bynum Walter, Planning and Development. As usual, as we always do, a reminder of some of the upcoming holidays in May and June ahead. We have some items scheduled for public hearing already on June 4, including the budget public hearing and 4 rezoning requests. I'll also be talking to you about 2 text changes that we're suggesting for public hearing on June 4 later in the slides. And I'm joined this afternoon by Chair Miller. There's nothing currently scheduled for June 18 at the afternoon meeting, and so we're recommending most of the items coming out of the Report of Planning Commission be scheduled for the 18th afternoon meeting. I know it's a lot, but given the way the reports are falling and the number of meetings available before the break, this feels like a good option to get things done. So the first item on the Report of Planning Commission today is not a public hearing request. This is actually a request coming from the applicant and the Planning Commission for a 45-day extension to continue the Planning Commission's review. This was a unanimous vote. A number of property owners involved in this request, and so the applicant is asking for a little bit more time to coordinate with those folks. And
If everybody's okay with that, make a motion to approve. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Right, thank you. That was unanimous.
And then public hearing rezoning requests, again, all recommended for June 18. This is a handful of parcels on Carolina Avenue. They are asking to remove the TOD. They initiated this request when single family was prohibited in the TOD and have decided to move forward based on the logic that the TOD just changed and it could change again. And so they would like to be removed. Planning Commission recommended approval. And again, that June 18 public hearing date. A request on Harper Road to increase residential entitlement. Planning Commission, a split vote here. I'm going to defer to Chair Miller for a reminder about what that issue was. This is a pretty large parcel for this neighborhood. It has what we refer to as ghost lots already platted. My understanding is that the owner would like to develop fewer lots than the ghost lots, but more lots than could currently be subdivided under the R4 regulations.
In this case, the applicant provided a condition that included a parking minimum in response to concerns from the neighbors, and the one vote against just wanted to highlight that parking minimums are contrary to our citywide policy to not include parking minimums.
Thanks, Chair Miller. This item...
Excuse me one second, Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I just want to note on this, I've been down there and talked with neighbors. It's a very narrow street without any sidewalks, and so when there are cars parked on opposite side from each other, there's concern that you can't get a vehicle down the road. So that's, I think, what they're trying to respond to.
So this item is much farther northwest of Harbor Road. So this is out in the Briar Creek area. A request to remove this parcel from the PD and apply a commercial mixed-use district here. Planning Commission recommends approval unanimously. Another item on Crabtree Boulevard, again with unanimous approval. This would increase height and add some conditions to this parcel as requested by the applicant. And then a handful of parcels on the southeast side of Wake Forest Road. Again, an increase in height, removing the NCOD. This is a portion of the Mordecai NCOD, and also applying a frontage and some conditions with unanimous support from the Planning Commission. A parcel on Blue Ridge Road at Lake Boone Trail. Again, an increase in height, adding a frontage, removing a frontage, but adding conditions and changing that base district to neighborhood mixed use, which would allow much more, typically would allow much more retail. Planning Commission recommends approval here as well. And then also suggested for that June 18 public hearing date, this is a city-initiated comprehensive plan amendment to revise the street plan to reduce the future width of Jones Franklin Road. You may remember we had a rezoning request in this area late last year, and this came up out of that request. This portion of the road it's indicated for a 6-lane. Staff has coordinated with the State Department of Transportation as well as Campo. Everybody's on the same page about this to bring the designation down to 4 lanes. And then those 2 text changes that I mentioned to you for June 4. The first is the Clean Transportation Ordinance, which would require EV-capable parking spaces for some uses, would prohibit drive-throughs in a handful of zoning districts, and require more pedestrian connections within new development. And then another text change, which would amend the UDO to revise the existing streetscape plan process. You'll remember we saw one of those not too long ago, the first one that we had seen in a while. What questions can I answer for you?
Well, the 2 votes in opposition, what was the reason?
They provided that they were in agreement with most of the thrust of the bill, however, or I'm sorry, the text change. But part of what this does is it also moves streetscape plans out of the Planning Commission review. And they said that the streetscape plans can often be complex planning tools closely related to rezoning cases. And so they thought, Commissioners Otwell and Fox thought that this should remain under the Planning Commission's purview.
Okay, thank you.
So 2 text changes suggested for June 4, the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning items scheduled for, suggested for June 18.
Could you put all the items up, please?
So those are the items suggested for the 18th.
Okay, and most of these, there was very little opposition in Planning Commission.
Move for approval.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we will see these all on the 18th. So,
The 2 text changes.
Move for approval.
second, oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
you.
Unanimous as well. Thank you. Next, we have special items. The first item is petition annexation, AX 0424, 4216 Holden Road.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Matthew Burns with Planning and Development. This annexation request is tied to rezoning Z524. It has the same applicant. This case last appeared as a special item on, or it last appeared on reported Planning Commission on May 7th, but City Council deferred setting a public hearing date to allow time to discuss the request with the applicant. And the applicant has submitted a revised application to make the rezoning request into conditional use. Planning Commission recommends approval of this request, and we are recommending public hearing dates of July 2nd for both the annexation and the rezoning. And the applicant is in attendance today, in case you have any questions for him.
That was me.
Councilmember Patton.
Thanks. Appreciate that. I'm glad we delayed so the zoning conditions offered by the applicant have been submitted to you. So if we set the public hearing, we could act on it. That they wouldn't be stuck in that like black box.
So what we are recommending is this return as a special item in 2 weeks, and then schedule the public hearing date then to allow time for staff to review the conditions as well as give enough time for noticing for the public hearings.
Oh, okay. Bring it back to us as a special item in 2 weeks, then ultimately set the public hearing for July 2nd.
Yes.
Understood. Okay, that's fine. Move to approve that plan.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have downtown investment opportunities. This is a follow-up from our May 7th council meeting.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Evan Raleigh with the manager's office. So we had a rather lengthy conversation on this topic last meeting. I promise the presentation will be much shorter this go round. So if you'll recall at the last meeting, we understood that you reached consensus on dividing the remaining capital reserve funding for FY24, which amounts to approximately $1.35 million between downtown capital investment projects that were focused on a few areas: safety, cleanliness, and public art, and additional support for people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in and around our downtown area. So to get it started, this is, again, it's going to be very brief. You have this in your backup materials. So this is just the areas that we are proposing as staff for your consideration as far as the investment options for downtown capital projects. I won't read that to you. I know you have these in front of you. Don't know if there's any questions about this. I did want to jump quickly to the next slide. This just shows some of the areas that we pulled back. If you remember specifically, your request was to set aside approximately $750,000 for downtown investment options, with the remainder going to unsheltered homeless efforts. I see there's a
Councilmember
question.
Black.
Hey, Evan. So from my understanding from the conversation that we had about the downtown investments, it was safety and cleanliness. And so I don't personally, I wanted to bring this up because I didn't think public art wayfinding fit into that. So I would be interested in not having that placed in this, and then that would actually get us under the 750 mark. That's my proposal.
Mayor Pro Tem?
What we could do is it looks like you cut back on the trash receptacles, 60,000. We could add that 60 back in, pull out the public art wayfinding, and that's a net 15. And that still has the sidewalk art and murals. And that actually gets it right to 750.
The sidewalk art and murals in there, or did you take that?
Yeah, it's in there. And I do think the sidewalk, at least the sidewalk stuff, I think that's very important for pedestrian safety.
The public art wayfinding is also important to safety, and I know we've discussed this at the DRA board meetings. It's also a way to attract families, bring more people downtown. If they know where to go, right now they have no idea. It's just putting, helping to attract more people in the streets and ensuring that families feel welcome.
We may need more information then on what that is, because that sounds like that would be helpful.
I think it was like the butterfly signs, right? Like
It was. So
get to Marbles Museum this way. Am I?
So just for context, and this is also should be attached in your agenda, the presentation that went into more detail about what these look like, the images from the May 7th meeting. It's not. I think it was. Well, it was. Yeah. Okay. Should have been attached, but yeah. Essentially, the wayfinding elements are, artistic items that you'd add to pole banners to sort of help folks find their ways to specific venues in downtown in a whimsical and artistic sort of way.
Councilmember Branch, then Patton, then Jones.
Just for me, from this is the engineer me jumping out, so forgive me. But for the purpose of the public art wayfinding and our kiosks and the information they provide, what's different?
So I think it's probably best to describe the wayfinding that's proposed as landmarks is probably a better way. You see a artistic butterfly wing attached to this pole banner as an example, and you're close to Marbles, something like that. It's not script and maps. It's more representative of where you are. So if you see this particular, thing, you're in a particular area.
Okay,
does that help?
you.
Councilmember Patton, then Jones.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure before we go super deep on negotiating sort of which things are in and out, was there, it says in the agenda that there will be more information about how the other
Yes, so there is.
I just want to make sure we get, I think maybe it would be useful to get that information
Sure,
before we
sure.
kind of hash this out.
Sure, we certainly can transition to that point if you'd like to hear the full staff proposal related to the spin now and then come back to this conversation.
Let's hear from Councilmember Jones first. And
I'll
then
hold off because I think mine, I have questions that I don't know or might be answered in that, so I can wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
okay.
at this
If we
point,
could have Emila come up then.
absolutely. We'll turn this podium over to Emily to review the remaining proposal.
Good afternoon, Council Mayor Emila Sutton, Housing and Neighborhoods, here to speak with you today about our proposal to expand the unsheltered homelessness response pilot with the remaining capital reserve funds. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're proposing under this expansion, also talk about what diversion is and how it could be helpful, and then summarize our proposed response for you. So in addition to permanent housing resources, one of the highest needs identified by Downtown Raleigh Alliance's ambassadors is flexible diversion funds to help people avoid unsheltered homelessness or to help them avoid entering the shelter system. The Continuum of Care has also identified diversion as a top priority. We're proposing to utilize a portion of funds to provide homelessness diversion for people referred through DRA ambassadors, in addition to expanding the homelessness response pilot. So a little more about diversion. We talked a little bit about this at the retreat back in January as well, but I'll quickly go through this. So the National Alliance to End Homelessness says diversion prevention and eviction prevention have the greatest impact on a community's response to homelessness. It stops the inflow. It's also considered the most cost-effective intervention available towards the goal of ending homelessness due to its relatively low cost and high success rate. It's also a much more effective intervention from the perspective of homeless service systems and ending homelessness, since diversion actually stems the inflow into shelter and unsheltered homelessness. Every person diverted makes a shelter bed available for someone else who needs it. It is considerably less costly on average than a shelter stay. In a community where there is also not enough drop-in shelter beds or shelter beds, diversion avoids the emergency-related costs of unsheltered homelessness to include ambulance use, sanitation, and interaction with law enforcement. So integrating diversion practices into the system helps ensure that scarce resources are better utilized. More importantly, good diversion processes focus on serving the household in crisis by helping them find positive alternatives to entering the shelter system or staying outdoors. Diversion assistance may be limited to services alone, such as conflict resolution or helping connect with family members or friends. Alternatively, diversion may combine services with financial assistance, which may take a variety of forms, such as a bus pass to stay with a family member, assistance with past due rent, or a grocery gift card for the friend with whom the person has been staying. So both services offered through diversion shown here have been shown to reduce homelessness. Diversion typically occurs at the point where people request emergency services, so such as entry into emergency shelter, or it could take place through outreach, which is what we're proposing here, before a person spends the night sheltered. This is how DRA ambassadors often encounter residents needing assistance downtown. And at that time, there's a focused conversation aimed at helping the person identify an immediate housing arrangement that is a safe alternative to shelter or sleeping outdoors. This housing arrangement may be temporary, allowing time to identify permanent housing option while avoiding the immediate trauma of homelessness, or it may allow those involved to explore the possibility of extending a temporary arrangement into a permanent one. So here's what we are proposing with the remainder of funds, is to allocate $75,000 of the capital reserve funds for diversion, and the remainder, $510,000, will be allocated to expanding the unsheltered homelessness response, providing direct housing assistance to include connections to case management, affordable housing options, and support services as needed. We estimate the additional direct housing assistance fund could assist up to 6 people experiencing homelessness and provide funds for 1 case manager.
Councilmember Patton, you had a question about this prior?
I just wanted to have this information I think like these relate to the conversation about how we spend the other half of the fund. So I just wanted this information to inform the larger conversation. So.
Okay, and Councilmember Jones, from before you had a question.
Sure, and this did help. I do want to help clearing for the homelessness response pilot. The way it sounded, and I may have misunderstood, is that it was for downtown, and we have homeless throughout the entire city. Would this program move beyond downtown, or is this hyper-focused on one area of the city?
So the overall unsheltered homelessness response pilot, that is citywide. I think the difference here is that we're proposing these diversion funds would be referred through the Downtown Raleigh Alliance ambassadors. What I think what we took away, and correct if this is a wrong understanding, is that the council wanted there to be a downtown focus. It can go either way, right? So it can be whatever.
And I think that speaks to and I missed last meeting, so I wasn't able to speak on this, but as we're looking at reserve funding, this 1.3 million, which we had talked about, each counselor having their own, there's everything, all of it is being focused on downtown. And we have so many other areas in the city. And so I was looking for this to make sure that we were still encompassing all of our districts in this. And so that's where my hesitation, as for what we're discussing in regards to the entirety of the fund going to one area. So I just put that on the table for everyone, not for you to respond to, but just my concerns.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a couple thoughts. I know our last council meeting, we just directed a great deal more funding than this for a citywide diversion and direct housing assistance program. I do think there is some merit to directing these portion of these additional funds, which, almost $600,000 is not pocket change, but it's smaller comparative to the amount we allocated citywide. But there are a lot of folks who do come downtown to Moore Square seeking shelter and food and services. And that does seem to be, to some folks at least, sort of the place where they're going seeking the assistance. And in fact, I think we even heard in public comment today about the need to do more, particularly around the Moore Square areas where folks are going already looking for help. And so I do think if we can put a portion of these funds, I think it's what, $585,000 is what you're suggesting, directly into those areas, I think that probably will make a big difference. So we've got a sort of a bigger pool of money going citywide, and then I think, I don't want to call it a smaller pool, but comparatively smaller, directing where folks are, I think some folks are already going seeking the assistance. I think that could be helpful.
I've also noticed a major uptick in Nash Square, attracting a lot more of our unsheltered residents. Yesterday, I counted 23 people there. Talked to a few of them, and it's getting, how do I say this, desperate. Councilmember Black.
Hi, Emma. So I want to address some of the comments I just heard at the table. I actually would be inclined to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Melton. Originally, with my whole issue with the way the funds were kind of popping up, it was specifically only about downtown Raleigh, and it was originally supposed to be funds that addressed across the city, and then we split it up to be half downtown Raleigh, and then the other half to go to the homelessness response. And I like that I think it kind of splits the difference and is a happy medium to have the homelessness response kind of focused on the downtown Raleigh area with the rest of the funds from this in a way, because as the mayor just mentioned, we do have an encampment. I see the encampment in Nash Square often, actually. So I do think we have a focus. We do have homeless people all across the city, but because we just allocated that $5 million for the response program, I think it's fair to use that money to kind of focus on the downtown region for this sort of conversation. But the question I actually have for you, thank you for underscoring the importance of a diversion program. And so I just want to understand how the process would work with flowing through the ambassador program. So an ambassador encounters a person who is experiencing homelessness, and then what happens? What is the flow of the process of what happens next?
Yeah, so, and to clarify too, we'll be doing some training on effective diversion too. There's a lot of really great material out there. So that's where people usually have that initial conversation, right, with the ambassadors. And there's usually a conversation to say, hi, where are you? Where did you come from? Or have you been here for a while? And there's sort of just starts a conversation about what are your options? For example, if there are limited shelter beds or someone is unable to stay in a shelter, what are other available options? Do you have family members here? Do you have family members somewhere else? Would they be willing to temporarily house you? Is there a friend that you know of that would allow you to stay if you paid for groceries for a week? So it's really highly conversational and interactive to figure out what is the best solution for that person in order to avoid sleeping outside or entering shelter.
And the ambassadors would be having the conversation with the people experiencing homeless. Is there going to be more training around how to hold these really care-based conversations with the people who are, I'm just curious, because when I think of the ambassadors, I think of them more as tour guides and kind of safety monitors and just people you can be hey, which direction is this thing? And they're a trusted person. So it seems like they're kind of representing a more compassionate arm of interacting with people experiencing trauma. So I'm just curious how that interaction would go for people learning how to do that as well.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So they have 2 employees that are specifically outreach folks that engage with people experiencing homelessness that are within their downtown boundary. So they already have a lot of skills around doing that work. And so this would offer them sort of another tool in the toolbox to be able to offer folks this sort of counseling and then some financial assistance to find them housing quickly. But again, we will be providing them program guidelines as well as additional training to make sure that they understand what exactly diversion is and how it should best be used.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm ready to make a motion to approve the recommended funding. I agree with Councilmember Black. I think it strikes a good balance, and I appreciate staff finding a way to accomplish multiple priorities with the amount of funds we have left. So I would move to approve the staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That was Councilmember Jones in opposition. The rest approved. There seems to be some confusion down there.
I think the question was whether my motion was the staff proposal or any changes. I moved forward the staff proposal. I feel a bit better about the need for the wayfinding after I pulled the agenda material from May 7th. So that was my motion was as put on the slides.
Okay, everybody's already voted, so. I didn't vote though, because I was confused about that. Okay, so that passes 7-1 with Councilmember Jones in opposition. One thing I would like to follow up, I know we talked about the dog park. I really, especially after talking to other mayors, this seems to be a heavy emphasis on this as a way to build community in downtowns. I'd like for us to explore grants or other funding options to continue that effort. And then I also have a question related to our temporary dog park here, right next door, which is heavily utilized. Are we looking at Nash Square, any reinvention of that anytime soon?
It is on our to-do list of looking at all of our park assets to kind of see how they can be reimagined. And you're talking about the temporary that became the permanent dog park that's attached to this building.
Because I got
heavily
Bill
utilized.
King and I got more emails on any subject. I'm not kidding.
It's
when
heavily
that dog
utilized.
park took down. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have text change authorization, Raleigh Water Department Handbook, update and revisions.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I'm Jonathan Ham with Raleigh Water, and I'm here to ask for authorization to begin the text change process related to the departmental handbook for Raleigh Water. So, again, today is just kind of kicking off the text change process, and we're going to follow a very similar process to what our friends in Stormwater have done over the last 6-7 months. So it will come back to you at a later date. We'll have proposed changes and updates going through Planning Commission, and then back to council for public hearing and approval. So just kind of giving you a high level of the proposed updates. We're updating from a 2014 handbook, so 10 years since the last time we updated it. We're incorporating regulatory changes from 2014 to now. Also, we're reorganizing the handbook for readability and for usability for our staff in their plan review comments, and updating pipe materials and appurtenances with the industry standards and also reliability. We also are including several policy updates, including the sewer-only accounts policy that you passed at the last meeting, and providing revisions and updates to our details and appendices. Again, the update process to this point, the last handbook update was in 2014. Staff and our consultant have been working on this since 2019. We've done numerous presentations to the Development Services Advisory Committee and also other primary users of the handbook. And staff from all divisions of Raleigh Water and other departments within the city have reviewed it and provided input, as well as the city attorney's office. So what we're asking for is authorization for staff to initiate the text change process to update and revise the Raleigh Water Departmental Handbook and refer it to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Do you have a question?
I do have a question. In here, it says that staff has worked with the Development Services Advisory Commission. Is there, I guess it's a question for council, is that like a typical board? Is there a liaison to that? How does that function? Because I know we've talked about it in a few different instances, and I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, good afternoon, Pat Young, Planning and Development. Planning helps support the Development Services Advisory Commission. They were originally appointed by council. They've evolved into kind of they're strictly advisory, of course, and they are kind of self-nominated folks that are involved in the development industry. So they do represent broadly the development industry, but they have not been recently appointed by council.
How often are there terms?
I don't know that there were designated terms.
Okay, thank you.
And to answer your question, Councilmember Jones, there isn't a city council liaison to DSAC. It's kind of been a functioning board for years, so.
Okay, just a question. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Can I ask a
Councilmember
question?
Patton.
Hi, thanks for this. I've noticed that you mentioned the handbook is from 2014, that you began working on updates in 2019. So we're 5 years on from when you started updating it, 10 years on from the last time it has been updated. That seems like quite a long time. COVID asterisk on everything.
Absolutely.
But is there like a plan for like more frequent care and keeping of this document?
Absolutely. So the plan for this next update is that we will compile annual updates into a separate document, and then we'll bring them back to you after 5 years and roll them into the book. So instead of every 10 years, the goal would be to update it every 5.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, there's a motion and a second on the table. Everybody in favor, please. Okay. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Downtown Municipal Service District.
Good afternoon, City Council members. Sadia Sattar with Budget and Management Services, bringing back the Downtown MSD expansion item for all of you. Just as a key reminder, we did go through the consideration of requests for exclusion from the proposed expansion of the Downtown MSD, and City Council today has to determine, actually going back, in reviewing all of the properties, City Council directed staff to remove 2 parcels located at 805 Northwest Street and 809 Northwest Street from the proposed boundary. So today, the direction that we need from City Council is whether you would like to include or exclude additional properties from the current Downtown MSD expansion boundary. And then what we also need from you after that is for City Council to formally vote to remove those 2 properties that you have already asked for us to exclude. And then we also need a formal vote, a first vote on the proposed ordinance to expand the Downtown MSD. So.
Okay, we had lengthy discussion last time, went through a lot of properties. I'm going to make a motion to exclude the 2 properties mentioned on West Street.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay. That's done. And then the MSD itself. Councilmember Harrison?
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion. That would be to make the first vote on the proposed ordinance to expand the Downtown MSD.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Councilmember Jones opposed. Rest is unanimous. Thank you. And I really appreciate all the work that went into it. There was a lot of very thoughtful discussion at the last meeting. I would like to add, though, the properties where there was some confusion, please come back to us like next year with information so we can give some more consideration to that. I think Councilmember Harrison's motion was misinterpreted, so we want to take another look at that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next is the Blue Ridge Corridor.
Yes, back
Municipal
again.
Service District.
You'll be seeing a lot of me today, so I apologize in advance. But we are back talking about the Blue Ridge MSD. And today we'll be doing what we did 2 weeks ago with downtown MSD's expansion. We are here to consider any exclusionary requests that we have received so far. So if you recall, residents in that proposed boundary had until May 14th to ask for exclusion. And again, the requests had to include, or they must have been written by an owner of a tract or a parcel, and must specify in detail that they do not need the services or functions within the proposed boundary to a demonstrably greater extent than that of the rest of the city. So based on the direction that we received from City Council, we are bringing forward today requests that we have received from property owners that actually own the parcels within the boundary. And of course, they had to have demonstrated with peculiarity that their property does not need those enhanced services. And then today, just wanted to reiterate to City Council that of the 689 parcels within this proposed boundary, 57 parcels sent us letters asking for exclusion. Those were all attached to the agenda item and were also sent to City Council staff in advance. So today, we need some direction from City Council on the residential commercial properties that have asked for exclusion. We also received some petitions after the deadline. Those were also included in the packet as well. And then City Council had asked us to consider some residential properties, and then, if you want to consider some late submittals of exclusionary requests as well. So going back, this is something you should be super familiar with for now. You can review all of those requests. Staff used our standard for review just like we did for the downtown expansion as well. And then if you accept any exclusions, that will change the current map. If you deny them, it does not change the boundary of the MSD. So based on the direction that we received today, we'll bring back the ordinance on June 4th, reflecting the district as amended. So that is my presentation for now. And if you have any questions.
Okay. Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sadia. I just want to speak about, I think there is value in this with Blue Ridge MSD. I know this area is growing a lot, and we're going to continue to see tremendous growth. But I also recognize concerns that have been raised about residential properties being included at this time. What I really want to see is proof of concept on this MSD. This is a new MSD, and so I am prepared to make a motion to exclude all residential properties at this time and let them get started show their value, show their proof to residents so that they understand, what they would get out of this with additional services. And I just want to stop there, but I can make that motion. This would include apartments, so excluding apartments, excluding condos, any types of residents that have currently been drawn into the boundaries.
Do you need specific addresses, or is that sufficient direction? It includes all of the apartments and condos that have written.
So just so that I'm clear, I think Councilmember Harrison, your direction is that, it's not just those single family homes, but also those apartments, those condo buildings. So we are working with IT to identify those properties. We don't have the exact, parcel numbers and all that to identify for you. So we will need some time to come back, and we can do that on the June 4th meeting, and kind of bring a clear and concise agenda item for all of you to deliberate on.
Well, will that agenda item you bring back on June 4th, if we approve that then, do we then
have enough time to kind of move forward? Let me just look back at Brandon. Where did he go?
I believe so.
Is.
Then we would have to make that motion to start the first vote on also June 4th.
And we also have that July meeting.
I'm just...
So Brandon Poole, City Attorney's Office. I'll answer the last comment first. The ordinance has to go into effect on July 1 for the tax rate to be effective for the next fiscal year, so it has to be adopted in June. Mayor, to your question, I think if the direction was provided to staff to come up with a list of properties that are residential in nature, the ordinance would be submitted to you with those properties listed as being excluded at the June 4th meeting. And so the timeline
so
could
that
be
would
met.
be included.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to make a motion?
Actually, can I just remembered something. So We have a map that IT kind of threw together, and I just want to go through these really quickly, Councilmember Harrison and Mayor Baldwin. So not only do we have those two single-family home residential properties, but we have townhomes, condos, apartments, and commercial condos properties. You would like to see all of these. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I do have a formal motion, and I also want to just add that, in the formation of this MSD, we don't yet know, what organization would manage this, but I think it's critical if they are seeking expansion into the future of residents, that they have those residents within the boundaries that will be taxed on their board and in decision-making, influencing what services are provided. I think that is where, the value will be seen.
And also communication and engagement.
Yes, all of that. My motion is I move that City Council find that residential properties within the proposed district boundary, including apartments with commercial ownership, are not in need of the services, facilities, and functions of the proposed districts to a demonstrably greater extent than the remainder of the city, and that staff be directed to bring an ordinance to the council for consideration that outlines and excludes these properties from the proposed district.
Could we add at this time?
At this time.
Thank you.
Can I just, sorry, before we call the vote, can I just ask, if I'm looking at this map, it looks like to accommodate that motion, there could be some areas that are create non-contiguity. I wonder if you need us to make any commentary about a fail-safe, if non-contiguity is created, then what, or something I just want to make sure that's covered so that y'all don't get down the road and we get back here with something that's unexpected.
I think the intent of Councilmember Harrison's motion was to allow staff to look at what the district looks like with those properties removed. If it creates problems with the boundaries, a boundary adjustment would come back with the ordinance. Otherwise, if it doesn't create problems with the boundary, we would just list the excluded properties within the boundary in the ordinance as being excluded. Does that answer your question?
I think what she's alluding to is a hatchet was taken instead of a scalpel with the motion that was made originally on the downtown MSD. So if there's any questions, let's not take it to the hatchet level again.
Right. The intention was for staff to come back at the next council meeting and advise council as to what the boundary could look like if it remains intact as it is, or if adjustments are required based on what happens when you pull the residential parcels out. But at that point, because there will not be council direction, council can still act on whichever path they want to take.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you've made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Fort. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. And that will come back to us June 2nd.
June 4th.
June 4th, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the report and recommendation of the city manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. And so you're getting a surprise from the budget management team.
It's the infamous budget packet.
This is the wrong one,
Yes.
Luke.
It weighs 10 pounds.
Weighs a lot. So, are we ready? Awesome. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. In accordance with the provisions of the Raleigh City Charter and the North Carolina Fiscal Control Act, I am pleased to submit my proposed budget for 2025 fiscal year and the proposed 5-year capital improvement program, known as the CIP, for FY 2025 through FY 2029. These documents balance at $1.43 billion and reaffirms our commitment to fiscal stewardship and responsible management while promoting deeper community connections. The annual budget, as you know, is the central policy tool that reflects the priorities and values that shape the city's future. It helps to establish funding priorities and puts into action strategic initiatives and objectives included in the adopted strategic plan. This unique tool supports the delivery of high-quality services that pursue the city's vision and mission. I am grateful for the incredible commitment of city staff, the trust demonstrated by our community, and the support and partnership of the members of the City Council. The proposed financial plan takes into consideration economic pressures, including inflation, supply chain issues, and interest rates that all impact our ability to deliver cost-effective services and create exceptional experiences for our residents and visitors. The theme of this year's budget is investing in Raleigh's future. As you look at the cover, you will see our future as it is beginning to unfold right next to us in this building. We are talking about a future that is bright and promises endless possibilities, a future that champions creative solutions to the most complex issues, a future that accepts each challenge as an opportunity to develop innovative approaches that enhance operations, minimize disruption, and elevate the customer experience. The investments proposed in the FY25 budget are strategically designed to maintain the city's competitive edge amongst our peer communities. In fact, in February, the annual Milken report named the city of Raleigh the second best performing city in the nation. And that is something to be very proud of. It is not about whether or not people come here to start businesses. It is about how we perform as a municipal unit of government. And there's only one city in the country that beats us, and it is our target that we will be #1 in 2025. This budget also strives to maintain that high level of organizational excellence through targeted investments and equitable outcomes. I continue to be fully committed to recommending a budget that reflects the priorities of the City Council and our community. Budget and Management Services surveyed the community on budget priorities and held more than a dozen virtual and in-person listening sessions across the city. Affordable housing, transit and transportation, public safety, and growth top the list of most residents' concerns. You will see these priorities represented in the recommended budget and outlined throughout this message and the budget recommendation, including the city's recommendations from the first participatory budget pilot. In January, city departments turned in operating budget requests. They asked for lots of new spending and lots of new things. Final recommendations for operating and capital budgets were evaluated based on priority, alignment with the city's strategic and departmental business plans, financial feasibility, and how the requests address the emerging needs of the community, among other criteria, including equity. Supplemental requests were also evaluated based upon the ability to improve outcomes for those who have been historically underserved in our community. The recommended budget reflects increased spending across 5 general areas. Those areas are workforce investments. That is our greatest asset. That is our people. Second, policy-driven initiatives. These are initiatives that you all have given us guidance and directions, as well as we have heard from our public. Financial roadmap. You will recall at the City Council retreat, we presented to you a financial roadmap, and I called it the Yellow Brick Road, and we have been working off of that road for the past several months to create a document that reflects the consensus, or at least most of the consensus of the community and those sitting at the table. The cost of doing business. While the cost has escalated for people in their respective homes to take care of their home bills, the cost of doing business for the city has also escalated, and you will see some concerns raised in the proposed budget that addresses that. And lastly, service enhancements. While the need for new investments remain high as outlined above, the economic pressures on our revenues reflect national trends, and our growth in expenditures continue to outpace the growth in revenues. Let me say that again. The growth in expenditures continue to outpace the growth in revenues. The FY25 budget will reflect changes to the city's property tax base resulting from Wake County's most recent countywide reevaluation of real estate values. The FY25 budget does not recommend a revenue-neutral tax rate. The tax rate proposed for this budget is 35.5 cents or 0.355 per $100 of assessed value. This is an 11% increase over the revenue neutral rate. And so as you see, as we continue to provide documentation through Sadia's presentation, you will see a lot and hear a lot about some of the deliberations, some of the long conversations, some of the trade-offs, some of the negotiations, and some of the compromises that led us to the budget that you will see today. Policy priority investments. The City Council, city staff, and our community partners, and many in the public have continued to develop new policy priorities to address existing and emerging needs in our community. With this budget, the city will continue to support strategic initiatives that have begun in recent years and implement new pilot initiatives. So in FY25, the city will provide ongoing operational support for the Acorns unit located in the Raleigh Police Department. While it may not be the fix for everybody, we have seen great success with some of the work that the unit has done to help people and to help many in our community in their times of need. This funding will be replaced we will replace the funding that came through to us from ARPA, our federal funded dollars, a couple of years ago. That $800,000 will help to stand this unit up and continue the amazing work that the Raleigh Police Department and the program does, working with social workers and law enforcement officers to provide resources and referrals to those in need. And contrary to what many people believe, we do need our police department. Crisis call diversion. The Emergency Communications Department, which answers 911 calls, will contract 3 licensed clinicians to take mental health related calls. So that is a new first step in being able to triage some of the situations that we get that will not require assistance from RPD. We are excited about that. It's a new pilot, it's a new program. There's been extensive research around the country. We have visited places, we've contacted, we've gone to places, people have come to us, and I think it is a good first step in the right direction in creating an alternative response model that addresses the needs in our community. We will also house 3 full-time peer support counselors in the Housing and Neighborhoods Department to, again, on a more consistent basis, provide additional support and assistance to those that are most in need. Affordable housing and housing choice continues to be the City Council's consensus priority policy objective. Resources are consistently appropriated through the Housing and Neighborhoods Department's Penny for Housing, affordable housing bond monies, and other federal dollars to support various housing programs. The general fund allocation for affordable housing will grow from $7.9 million in current dollars to $11.4 million in FY25 due to the revaluation of property. This money will be used to support several service programs and enhancements throughout the city. Those include support to the continuum of care. What we learned during the pandemic of 2020 when people were at their worst and we needed to be able to step in and provide some assistance, we were able to figure out how we could do it from a collective and a collaborative effort, and the city can't do it alone. So the continuum of care is a group of interested folks and compassionate folks in this community who care about people and who want to make sure that we can provide the services to those who need it the most when they need it the most. We will also fund the Flexible Homeless Prevention Funding Program, which helps to aim people that are struggling and are housing compromised, or it helps to make those that are already in housing be able to stay in their homes, and we're excited about that. Additionally, there is targeted outreach and assistance to individuals relying on encampments for sheltering. As we all know, as a community, we are blessed and we are fortunate, and I think we all will ultimately be judged by how we take care of the least of us. So it is important for us to create opportunities that we take care of those that are down on their luck in this moment in time. As you review the proposed investments in the FY25 proposed budget, I hope you will see that council and community priorities reflected throughout, balanced with our commitment to strong fiscal stewardship and superior service. Delivery of this document positions the city to adopt a spending plan before the conclusion of the current fiscal year as required by North Carolina law. In closing, I would be remiss if I did not publicly thank my amazing team. I am surrounded by amazing public servants who not only value the work that we do day in and day out, They also value who we do the work for. And that is critical to this community's success as well as all of our professional success. To my management team, thank you for being true teammates who understand and respect the fact that organizational strength lies in each other. Your commitment to this organization and our community is unmatched. To Sadia Sitar and the Budget and Management Services Department, a huge thanks for allowing the data to tell the story, our story, of how our collective goals and priorities will shape our success for years to come. A special thanks to the City Council for your guidance and support throughout the budget development process. And lastly, thanks to the residents of Raleigh for staying engaged and articulating community goals that will help us to invest in Raleigh's future. And as a point of personal privilege, I would like to thank the Mayor and the City Council for your continued support of DEI work. It is my honor to work with you to make sure that everyone in this city and in this organization is seen and heard, particularly when this work is being dismantled and removed across the state. Thank you. I will turn it over to Sadia, who will give you all the nuts and bolts of the FY25 proposed budget.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council and City Manager. I am Sadia Sitar, Director of Budget and Management Services here in the city. This afternoon, I will present the City Manager's proposed fiscal year 2025 operating and capital budget. The cover of this year's proposed budget book represents our theme for this year's budget, which is investing in Raleigh's future. The City of Raleigh continues to receive accolades, a testament to our educated and diverse workforce combined with a very good quality of life that sets us apart from most communities. Our goal in this budget has been to continue to invest in our city's future through consistent and conscientious investments in our people and our infrastructure. The fiscal year 25 budget started with conducting the city's first ever participatory budgeting pilot. We want to thank all the residents who provided their voices to the budget process. Our goal has been to ensure that their preferences and priorities were reflected in the budget that we created for our community. Our budget was not created in a silo. It was a concerted attempt by staff to ensure that the budget process considered council priorities, the city's strategic plan, departmental needs and business plans, with equity and engagement at its core. And as we built the budget for the 2025 fiscal year, we encountered a very different landscape than the one we did last year. Our revenues are growing moderately, whereas the cost of providing the same level of services has increased. Despite all of this, our goal has always been to invest in our city's future. The fiscal year 25 budget invests in our operating infrastructure. It maintains efficient core delivery services. It funds critical public safety services, and it also dedicates funding in recruitment and retention efforts. But mostly, it looks to the future by investing in our biggest asset, which is our workforce, through a dedicated penny for the implementation of the class and comp study. And it also seeks to maintain our infrastructure through a dedicated penny for our capital and deferred maintenance needs. To meet these objectives, we had to make some tough decisions. The 2024 tax rate for the City of Raleigh was 43.3 cents for every $100 of assessed value. The new tax rate for fiscal year 2025 is 35.5 cents per $100 of assessed value, which is 3.8 cents higher than the revenue-neutral tax rate of 31.7 cents. We also wanted to share with City Council that the value of a cent on our tax rate has also increased. While being $7.9 million just a year ago, with the 2024 Wake County revaluation, the value of a penny is now $11.4 million. It has grown by 44% or $3.5 million since the reval. To meet the growth in the community, as well as increasing demand for services, the fiscal year 2025 all funds recommended budget for the City of Raleigh is $1.43 billion. That is an 11.8% growth over last year's adopted budget. Property taxes continue to comprise of the largest source of revenues for our city. Our biggest expenses continue to be our investments in personnel, which comprises of salary and benefits followed by operating expenses. Let's talk about the general fund. The city's fiscal year 2025 general fund budget is $732.2 million, a 13.1% growth from last year's adopted budget. Public safety continues to be the largest portion of our general fund's budget, with 33% dedicated towards Raleigh Police, Fire, and Emergency Communications. And again, while property taxes continue to be the largest source of revenues for this year's general fund, this year's property tax is increasing by 3.8 cents. This is over and above natural growth and, as mentioned previously, a result of a property tax increase sought by the city manager. Before we dive any further, let's talk a little bit about how we got to where we are today. The increase in the property tax is needed to balance the growing needs and demands of our community. As a base budget organization, we start the budget process with the prior year's adopted budget, which was $647.2 million. Natural growth in our revenues of about $41 million allowed us to budget for merits, retirement increases, vehicle M&O, and right-sizing dedicated CIP funds to the current value of the penny. It also allowed us to increase general fund support for our transit fund. However, in order to truly cater to the growing needs and demands from us as an organization and a city, we had to look beyond just natural growth. And that is why we are proposing a property tax increase from the revenue neutral rate of 3.8 cents. This allows us to budget for public safety salary increases, market adjustments for all our employees, citywide operational enhancements to continue to provide excellent services, and to invest in the future as we dedicate a whole penny for the class and comp study, as well as a whole penny to meet our deferred capital maintenance needs. And before we move away from talking about revenues and expenses overall for the general fund, we did want to share with council some major trends that both our revenues and expenditures are experiencing, especially since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. The 2024 Wake County revaluation caused our property tax revenues to grow by 18.4%. However, it appears that last fiscal year may have been the last year of high sales tax growth projections. Unlike the unprecedented growth seen the past few years, sales tax growth is now more moderate and is only 6.6% larger than last year. In comparison, our expenses continue to outpace growth in our revenues, with salaries and benefits increasing by almost 8% and operating increases increasing by over 10% due to inflation and rising prices to meet demand. And to round out our conversation about revenues, I do want to remind City Council that we did speak to you earlier last month about our city enterprises. Residents can see their water rates increasing by 4% for the next fiscal year. They can also see an increase of 29 cents to their monthly stormwater fee. And finally, can see a $1.70 increase to the solid waste services monthly garbage fee. I will now pass it on to our city's HR Director, Charnel Jones, to speak to the investments we have made to our city's workforce in the 2025 proposed budget.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. I'm excited about the opportunity to present to you recommendations for compensation and benefits for the City of Raleigh. As the City Manager stated, the workforce, which is our greatest asset, is a big part of the budget. And we are committed to delivering a compensation and benefit plan that helps us attract and retain a diverse, high-performing workforce. As you may recall, back at the budget work session in February, we informed Council that we are working on several analyses and collecting data to identify market trends and will bring back to you some recommendations for public safety and solid waste services. As a result of the review, we're recommending a 5% market adjustment for sworn police officers up to police major, a 5% market adjustment for firefighters up to division fire chief, and a 5% market adjustment for ECC up to ECC operations manager. Also, we reviewed solid waste services, and there was some misalignment with 2 classifications, maintenance specialists and maintenance operations crew supervisors. We are recommending the market adjustments on the screens for those classifications. These 2 positions are not only in solid waste service, but expand across the organization in Parks and Rec, Transportation, and Raleigh Water. And lastly, due to inflation and market trends, we are recommending a 2% market adjustment for all other employees. These adjustments will be effective July 13th and reflected in employees' paycheck on August the 2nd. There we go. This chart shows the annual pay increases, which is also known as merit. We are recommending for FY25. In those, you will see police, fire, and general pay plan will be eligible to receive a 5% increase. Those in broadband will be eligible to receive a 1 to 6% increase, an average, which is the pool of 3.5%. Permanent part-time and temporary employees will be eligible to receive a 1% increase. Probationary employees will be eligible for a 1% lump sum. The annual evaluation process will begin on June 15th and end on August 30th. And employees must receive a successfully meets expectation at or above the rating to be eligible for this increase. The increase for the annual pay increases will be effective September 21st and reflected in employees' October 11th paycheck. This chart is meant to show you an example of the impact of the public safety market adjustments and the annual pay increase. You will see listed the average salary of the classifications listed, the amount of the market adjustment, which is the 5%, and the annual pay increase, which is another 5%. The average total increase will be around 10.3%, which could be more if your salary is higher than the average. We are also recommending new hiring salaries for police officer, firefighter, and emergency communications call taker. For police officers, $55,331, firefighter, $51,194, and emergency call taker, $45,323. When you look at the pay adjustments and annual pay increases, this is where we land. $8.8 million for public safety, plus a $10 million for general enterprise employees, for a total of $18.8 million in pay increases for our workforce. Our recommendation today also keep the information in regards to benefits, which was also presented back in February. And during our February meeting at the budget work session, we talked about a health and benefit strategy, which included making sure that we meet the diverse needs of our employees, that we align benefits with best practices and trends of other employers, and that we also provide benefits that are financially sustainable. Our health insurance is the most expensive benefit we provide to our employees and their families. We cover over 9,300 lives under our health insurance. The fiscal year of our health insurance is budgeted at more than $58 million. Of that, the city pays more than $50 million, and our employees cover the remaining. Medical and pharmacy trends survey that project a certain increase of 6.1 to 8.1%. We are recommending no employee premium increase for medical and dental. As part of our health and benefit strategy, we also, as I mentioned earlier, want to align our benefits with best practices and trends of other employers. So we are recommending enhancements to our medical and dental plans that includes infertility treatment and other enhancements. We are also recommending additional benefit coverage for permanent part-time employees. You will also see the recommendation of some voluntary benefits that employees can elect to sign up for, which includes pet insurance, the 529 college savings plan, long-term disability, and identity theft under our EAP program. We will also be bringing back some additional leave options, such as birthday leave, personal leave, well-being leave, and bereavement leave, with a revised leave policy at the next City Council meeting. Any questions?
Okay. Councilmember Patton?
Yes, I do. Hi. So I I don't know even which side to go to. There's the market adjustments that could be up to 5% depending on your department. Then there's the merit. They won't happen in the same paycheck, but they'll happen in short succession. So someone could receive like roughly a 10% adjustment to their overall salary. On the merits, you said it's going to anybody who meets expectations.
Yes, successfully meets.
What proportion of our staff get that rating?
I can get that for you, but I can tell you over 75% receive the annual pay increase. It's probably more than that, but I can provide you that number.
Sure, that'd be helpful. Thanks.
Any additional questions?
I will now turn it back over to Sadia.
Thank you, Charnel. Okay, back to the budget. The city's 5-year strategic plan translates vision and goals into actionable strategy that guides the organization's focus work and our resource alignment. The plan's overarching key focus areas and underlying objectives allow us to be transparent about our goals, focused on our efforts, and accountable for our results. The budget translates the strategic plan into our actionable items, and the fiscal year 2025 budget includes additions that reflect these priorities. And before I speak to the operational increases in the fiscal year 2025 budget, I want to ensure Council that our efforts were focused and intentional. Focus on ensuring that each budgetary decision intentionally reflects the preferences and priorities of our community and best supports the City of Raleigh's growing operational needs. So let's talk about organizational excellence. The city continues to provide high-quality, responsive, and innovative services efficiently. Over the last year, our communications department responded to an over 70% increase in public records requests, and our HR department continues to respond to the ever-changing job market, having reviewed over 51,000 applications so far. To foster a transparent and nimble organization, the fiscal year 2025 budget commits funding for an Engage Raleigh Expo that continues to understand the needs of the community. It also provides funding for temporary paralegals to respond to increasing public records requests. And finally, the budget provides a full-time position to identify opportunities to strengthen and promote the city's Minority Women's Business Enterprise program. This is a pivotal position in increasing awareness of City of Raleigh opportunities. In addition, the fiscal year 25 budget commits funding for the implementation of a disparity study that will include technological improvements, expanded services, increased marketing, and additional training. Investments in robust defense measures to safeguard sensitive information, maintain operational resilience, and support the community by enhancing our cybersecurity posture and ensuring the continued protection of our critical digital assets. And finally, continued investments in the city's Smart Raleigh Fund that use data and technology to improve outcomes and quality of life for all are also in the fiscal year 25 budget. Our organizational excellence spotlight for the fiscal year 2025 budget is the restructuring of our HR department for improved recruitment strategies, enhanced service delivery, streamlining of processes, and to continue our commitment to provide enhanced services for employee relations. This will move HR forward to more efficient and effective service delivery and promote HR as a strategic partner for the city. We can all agree that a large part of what makes Raleigh truly unique is the entertainment and economic benefit that our arts, parks, and cultural resources bring to our community. With over 100,000 youth, adults, and active adults registered for recreational programming this fiscal year, it is evident that the city's residents and visitors alike continue to recognize the diverse gathering spaces and neighborhood resources that foster connection and connectivity in the community. To enhance the neighborhood and economic development goals of the post-pandemic recovery of our city, and especially our downtown, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources will receive general fund support for safety, sanitation, and programming to attract more foot traffic downtown and to promote the vibrancy and health of our public spaces. Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources will also receive funding to support an increase in public hours and new programming to allow staff and resources to function effectively and respond to community needs managed by the department's Historic Resources and Museum program. And lastly, 3 CIP project managers will work to address the backlog related to Penny for Parks projects. This will ensure strategic utilization of penny tax funding for project execution and ensure effective project prioritization. Our Arts and Cultural Resources spotlight for the fiscal year 25 budget is Dix Park, an extraordinary public space in the heart of our city. The budget proposes a joint partnership between Parks and Engineering Services to work together for the transfer of buildings from the state of North Carolina to the city of Raleigh. Next fiscal year, the city can expect an incremental transfer of the Scott, Brown, and Lineberger buildings, a total of 64,000 square feet and an additional 25 acres of landscaped area. The budget also contains funding in anticipation of the opening of Gibson Play Plaza, a multi-million-dollar investment. It is the first major park transformation project to be funded and built from the council-adopted Dix Master Plan. With anticipated opening expected in the spring of next year, the budget includes resources to ensure anticipated increased visitorship and to maintain the scale and complexity of the plaza. The City of Raleigh continues to reduce barriers and encourage growth. This year alone, 20 building outfit grants were awarded, resulting in a total of $432,000 in investments in small businesses, and 450 affordable housing units have been created or preserved in this fiscal year alone. The city remains committed to creating, preserving, and encouraging the development of affordable housing. The fiscal year 25 budget will continue these efforts, but with the incremental increase in the value of the penny, housing will also be able to commit to strategic programming for flexible homelessness prevention funding, coordinated entry enhancements, an encampment response plan, as well as increased operating funding for both Oak City Cares and Healing Transitions. This funding is not the only funding for housing in this budget. Overall, the city is committing an additional $23.1 million through the housing bonds, both old and new, rental development, as well as the home grant. The City of Raleigh strives to be a safe and engaged community where people feel protected and enjoy access to community amenities that support a high quality of life. The city's public safety departments continue to provide services and the latest safety measures that help support a thriving community in which to live, work, and play. This year, emergency communications staff completed just around 500,000 public safety dispatches, and Raleigh Fire is estimated to investigate 280 fires this fiscal year alone. Public safety continues to occupy the largest portion of the city's general fund, with $241 million budgeted for Raleigh PD, fire, and emergency communications. For fiscal year 25, this is a 7.6% increase from last year's budget. To promote a clean and engaged community environment where people feel safe, the 25 budget includes targeted investments that not only enhance community members' quality of life, but also target specific operational investments to streamline the demands on our public safety departments as the city continues to grow. Key investments at the ECC include funding for a software service that will automate the answering of non-emergency calls to better assist the needs of our community. Raleigh PD will get 2 positions in its fleet services unit to address the current backlog of new patrol vehicles, and the budget also provides funding for police to host 2 community education opportunities related to substance use and mental health. In Raleigh Fire, the fiscal year 25 proposed budget includes the adoption of a new 10-year fire apparatus replacement schedule. This new replacement schedule maps out replacing 39 apparatus totaling 71% of the department's fleet over the next 10 years, and also procures an additional replacement ladder for the department. The establishment of a recurring equipment replacement model will utilize the equipment fund to finance equipment purchases that also include self-contained breathing apparatus, thermal imaging cameras, extrication equipment, radios, and others, totaling approximately $6.6 million in 2025. The budget for fire also includes a deputy fire marshal position to respond to mandated inspections due to citywide development and growth. This budget also matches the alternative response program outlined at the April 16th council meeting. As mentioned previously by the city manager, funding for call diversion is included in the Emergency Communications Department. 3 positions are allocated to housing and neighborhoods for peer support and case management, and $800,000 restores funding in the police budget for core response by social workers. The city continues to work with Wake County and other partners on a community response team. The City of Raleigh also remains committed to providing an equitable and accessible citywide transportation network for pedestrians, cyclists, automobiles, and transit. The city's transportation department continues to address infrastructure priorities by installing 3,400 traffic signals this year and repairing 95% of reported potholes within 24 hours. The 25 budget provides funding to maintain existing infrastructure through a sidewalk maintenance crew expansion to address backlog in the sidewalk program, and it also contains funds for tipping fees for the disposal of loose leaves and supports updates to the city's Bike Raleigh plan with an emphasis on bike lane implementation focused on linking strategic connections. The budget also strategically invests in multimodal connectivity between the city's high-impact activity areas and also includes ongoing funding for access to big data tools that will allow the department to operationalize bike-ped metrics into the sustainability climate dashboard. A key spotlight to share with our City Council and our community is that starting July 1, Go Raleigh will begin a soft launch of fairs with at least 60 days of education and outreach. As it stands now, 32% of our total annual ridership rides free through existing programs. These include active adults over the age of 65, children 12 and under, and teens that ride for free using the Go Pass program, which are also provided by universities and through employers. Go Raleigh also offers 25% discounts to nonprofits for bulk purchases, which will also continue to remain in place. Raleigh remains committed to preserving and protecting the community's natural resources and encourage sustainable growth that complements existing development. This year, the city continues its environmental stewardship efforts, with the Planning and Development Department completing 18,000 plan reviews and engineering services maintaining 2.8 million square feet of heated space, and stormwater maintaining or cleaning over 37,000 linear feet of stormwater pipes in fiscal year 2024. To increase the use of renewable energy sources, vehicle fleet services will expand the city's motor pool with Smart Fleet. This continued emphasis on clean transportation will ensure that the city remains committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and moves forward toward alternative fuel. To help reduce the downtime on solid waste services trucks and increase preventative maintenance rates for the department, the budget includes 2 positions specifically focused on heavy equipment repair to ensure that residents continue to receive efficient city services such as trash, recycling, and yard waste removal. Finally, the Planning and Development Department will receive a position for the newly formed Urban Projects Group, Civic Projects, and Places Unit. This position will create resource capacity and be able to provide design expertise in a timely manner. In fiscal year 2025, stormwater management will continue to improve levels of service to our community. This will include the provision of an in-house green stormwater infrastructure or GSI maintenance crew housed in Parks, Recreational, and Cultural Resources to provide in-house green stormwater infrastructure maintenance. This will include the implementation of data-driven decision-making to not only proactively collect data, but also use it to improve underrepresented areas in and around the city to improve environmental resources such as our tree canopy and our open spaces. So this wraps up our operating budget highlights for the 25 proposed budget, and I will now speak to the City of Raleigh's fiscal year 25 capital budget, which continues the intentional alignment with the city's strategic plan, as well as resident priorities expressed during the city's budget's community engagement process. The City of Raleigh's fiscal year capital budget is $499.7 million, the total 5-year CIP being $2.15 billion. Raleigh Water is the largest portion of the city's capital budget, followed by general public improvements to include the maintenance and construction of general government public safety facilities and infrastructure, as well as economic development projects. The city's capital improvement program uses the elements of housing, transportation, and PRCR, certain aspects of which are supported through dedicated general fund PAYGO funding, as well as GPI and technology, along with enterprise elements to include Raleigh Water, Stormwater, and the Convention Center Arts Complex. In prior months, City Council has heard from enterprise elements on their fiscal year 25 capital budget. As shared earlier with City Council, the city remains committed to maintaining and updating its current infrastructure, and excited to share that we are dedicating a penny of the property tax rate moving forward specifically to PAYGO projects. This will allow us to take care of our needs as they arise instead of having to borrow money in the future. It will also allow departments to enhance project delivery and provide much needed maintenance and facility needs. Some of the highlights from our 5-year CIP include funding for over 65 projects in Raleigh Water, ongoing support for solar projects, investments in the city's ERP or human capital management, support for our Civic Places program to match an operational need that was satisfied in the budget, as well as convention center expansion and building system repairs and improvements. And finally, here are some key debt finance projects. Our GPI includes $10.8 million for Fire Logistics Warehouse, a heavy equipment shop, as well as the Southeast Remote Operations Center. This is the second year of the 2022 BARCS bond, where we will set aside $38.4 million for 14 projects, including Smoky Hollow Park and Sertoma Arts Center improvements. And finally, the 2020 housing bond will commit $5.2 million for the continuation of affordable housing programs. It wouldn't be a budget if we didn't have a surprise for City Council. As a treat for City Council and our community, Budget and Management Services has put together a budget dashboard, which will be made live on our website, budget.raleighnc.gov. Through the dashboard, you can toggle between budgeted revenues and expenses for departments citywide, as well as trends going as far back as fiscal year 2021. And before I wrap up, because I know I've been talking for a long time, I do want to acknowledge that staff has received 2 budget notes from City Council, which will be presented on our first work session scheduled for June 3rd. First is the budget note asked for by Mayor Baldwin for Oak City Cares. We are happy to report that this budget note was satisfied by operational priorities in the fiscal year 25 proposed budget. The second budget note is a joint ask by both council members Patton and Fort on a separation allowance for Raleigh Fire and the city's operational departments. This budget note will be presented to City Council in comprehensive detail on June 3rd. As a reminder to City Council, budget work sessions are scheduled to begin on June 3rd at 4 p.m. and will be held on the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th of June. The earliest City Council can adopt the fiscal year 25 budget being June 10th. A public budget hearing is also scheduled for June 4th at 7 p.m. And lastly, as I wrap up, I want to thank our partners in communications, in finance, and human resources, and of course, the City Manager's Office. Thank you also to our residents and our City Council for guiding us to build a budget that is a reflection of our priorities and what makes us really the best city to live in North Carolina. And lastly, I would not be here if I did not thank my team. Thank you to each and every member of Budget and Management Services for working to create a budget that is truly exceptional and really cares about investing in the future of our city. So stand up, guys, and take a bow. Well, this wraps up my presentation for the fiscal year 2025 proposed operating and capital budget, and I would now like to open the floor to City Council to ask any questions that you may have.
Okay. Who has questions? Councilmember Harrison, then Patton.
Thank you so much, Sadia. I know this is a huge amount of work. I'm on page 170. I'm reading really fast.
Oh, my goodness.
But thank you to your team. I just want to note some of the really exciting elements, and I'll ask a couple of questions as well. I do realize now that the 1 penny is a bit more than what it used to be. So 1 penny was 7.9 million. Now it is 11.4 million. So our 1 penny for affordable housing has grown. We also have the $5 million in programmatic income that we're using for homelessness diversion.
Correct.
I'm really excited about that. I had asked last summer that we double our commitments to affordable housing, and I think with those 2 items, that gets us to a doubling. Plus, we have our affordable housing bond. We're still using federal funding programs and other grants. So I just really want to thank Housing and Neighborhoods for being willing to keep pushing. It's huge. Also excited to see the penny for deferred maintenance, the penny for compensation increases into the future, positions added for green stormwater infrastructure to manage some of our parks, Moore Square, a lot of University Historic Park, Nash Square, Dix Park, the new Gibson Play Plaza, which will open in the spring next year. I do have a question, or just wanted, and maybe it's a manager's update would be appropriate, is to understand the salary for whoever will be managing the Gibson Play Plaza. I just want to ensure that we're able to recruit the best talent there and be competitive with our peers like the Cary Downtown Park. I also am very excited to see the salary increases for public safety, solid waste services, Raleigh Water, our essential personnel. They are who get the job done. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's huge. And I know this is about a 4 penny increase overall, a little less than that. I am very curious to see the discussion around the separation pay benefit. I want to see what does that look like. And then also in terms of the alternative response unit, I'm really excited about positions added to Housing and Neighborhoods as well as ECC, the Acorns unit. But I am curious about how are we working with the county to develop that community response team? Can we also get a manager's update on that?
Yes.
Or some kind of discussion? Thank you.
Councilmember Patton.
Well, Jane took all the good stuff. Just co-sign all of that. I don't want to replicate. I know we still have more agenda after this. So much there that I want to add exclamation marks to. One thing, if I cut away all of that, then the one question I do have is I know that you've shown us here that fares will return. I do think there's still an open question about what the new rates will be. Can you, just for people who might be watching at home or in the audience, when will we hear of the proposed new rates?
So I believe that our Transportation Department is scheduled to come back and talk about this in our first meeting in June, but we do have David Eatman here from Transportation who would be happy to chat with you all a little bit further about this. Thank you, David.
Hi, good afternoon. David Eatman, Transportation Transit. So our budget proposal did contain fares. They were at the pre-COVID levels, which base fare at $1.25 and our ADA fare at $2.50. Now, as we went through that process, we knew the first year, as we had new software, as well as all of the options for fares that were available pre-COVID, we knew that it's going to take time to educate individuals how do the new fares work or the new fare technologies work. So we have about 90 days built into that process to make sure that first we educate and go through that first quarter of the new fiscal year, educating all of our riders, and then from that point, hopefully moving forward with full fare implementation. So that was part of the first year. We expect the second year, certainly our fares to increase more as we wouldn't have to go through that first quarter of really educating our riders.
you're coming back to us with more, is that what I heard? I have more questions, but I will spare them now if you're going to be back in front of us soon.
I would assume I would, yes.
Okay, I'll hold
I
them
think
for then.
it was said that you were scheduled back at our first meeting in June.
Yeah, I'll hold my other questions till then. Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Jones, did you have a question?
I did, but I think if they're coming back, I can wait. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, that was a lot to absorb.
Hopefully you won't see me for a long time at the podium. Yeah.
I would just urge members of council, if you have additional questions, please ask staff. And we're going to be hearing a lot more over the next month. So, but just be prepared and ensure that you get the information you need. So with that, thank you.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for the shout out.
Good work.
So moving to the second item under the manager's
You've
report
got
today.
more?
I know, just really quickly, both of which are really good items. So the second is a downtown property assemblage for some proposals for the declaration of surplus property. We have Erica Brandt from Housing and Neighborhoods here to present this item.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Erica Brandt, Housing and Neighborhoods. I'll be presenting options and recommendations to you for how to proceed with 2 lot clusters in downtown that were identified for affordable housing development. So we'll start with some background information on the parcels and then the process to date. Then we'll go over several options on how to move forward as well as the staff recommendations. So the 2 clusters in question are located on Bloodworth Street near the intersection with East Cabarrus, and then on the corner of East Cabarrus and Southeast Street. An RFP was issued in September of 2022 and then reissued again in May of 2023. Both times had minimal interest from developers. So because of this, staff met with local developers to discuss barriers to developing the sites and with the RFP structure. This chart shows the feedback that was garnered from these conversations as well as mitigation strategies that staff came up with. So in the RFP itself, there was concern about the ambiguity of city gap financing that would be available and also about how compliance with the affordability requirements would work. We also received feedback that having to deliver a fully scoped proposal was a barrier, especially considering the high level of site plan review that would be required. So to mitigate these issues, staff proposed redesigning the RFP to both clarify the city's role and to orient the solicitation towards selecting the best development partner rather than a project proposal, and then working with that development partner to co-design a project. Another concern was that for the Bloodworth cluster specifically, the size of the site, which is very small, just over a tenth of an acre, as well as parking constraints and the historic overlay district posed issues to development. So one way to mitigate this problem would be to remove this cluster from the RFP and sell those lots, potentially using the sales proceeds as gap financing for a project to be built on the other lot cluster. There is also generally market uncertainty, which could be mitigated, again, through gap financing availability, or potentially by partnering with the housing authority to get some project-based vouchers for a project. And then finally, in terms of land disposition, developers preferred a longer ground lease term to appease the underwriting standards for their lenders. So here are several options for how to proceed with the 2 lot clusters based on these challenges that were identified. For the Bloodworth cluster, the city could declare the lots as surplus and use the sales proceeds to support the Affordable Housing Fund. Alternatively, the parcels could be reserved for a potential future project. For the East and Cabarrus cluster, staff could refine and reissue the RFP to identify a development partner rather than a specific project. Or staff could work to internally design exactly what we would like to see built on the site and then issue an RFP to choose a builder. Or finally, these parcels could also be sold and the proceeds could benefit the Affordable Housing Fund. So staff recommends selling the Bloodworth parcels, given the significant development constraints that were discussed, and then refining and reissuing the RFP for just the East and Cabarrus cluster to identify a development partner. Staff feels that the East Cabarrus cluster is still viable for affordable housing development, so don't necessarily recommend disposing of those lots. But given the heavy lift that it would be to fully develop a project in-house, suggest doing the partner route instead of just soliciting a pre-approved project and finding a builder. So that is reflected in the recommendation, and I will take any questions.
What's the value of that Bloodworth cluster? What are we looking at?
That is a good question. I don't know if Allison, do you know?
We have an appraisal, but it'll take.
Okay, we have an appraisal. We can get back to you with that. It might take a minute to get that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Branch?
Thank you for the information and feedback. I want to get a better understanding with the Bloodworth cluster. One of the points, it says the historic designation limits the feasibility developments income housing. Because, what we keep hearing over the last several months is that, this area could still do some type of mixed income housing with the overlay in place. So I'm confused based on things that we're hearing and this feedback.
Yeah, and I'll if anybody wants to jump up, feel free. But I'll say in generally, I believe the issue is that having that historic overlay district just constrains the types of development type that can happen. Right, you've got to have certain materials and certain kind of physical components of a development, and that adds cost. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult. I think generally.
Okay, so it's the additional cost that makes it kind of prohibitive.
I believe so. Yeah, okay. And we can also, get more specific feedback from those conversations to provide you in a follow-up as well.
Please do. Thank you.
Which overlay district is here?
It's the Prince Hall.
Okay. We have an item in EDI on the Prince Hall District. Would it make sense to discuss that with this, or do we want to proceed with what the staff's recommendation is?
This is my thought on it. I think it would be helpful to have this in the back of our mind, sort of speak, when we have the EDI discussion for long-term policy objectives about the Prince Hall District, knowing that we have these parcels and one of the limiting factors or conditions for getting affordable housing was the Prince Hall overlay. But I don't want to tie, I think, these parcels to that. My suggestion would be to follow the staff recommendations on this, but certainly as we have continuing conversations about what is the appropriate long-term, strategy for the Prince Hall Overlay District, it is helpful to remember that we had these sites go out and they were deemed not feasible in part because of that. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Councilmember Fort?
I think I take the opposite position, and I would say that we probably should hold on making a decision about this until we know what's going to happen with that overlay district, because I think that's going to impact the decision that we make as a council about what to do with these parcels. And so I would take the opposite approach.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, just wondering if there were any internal discussions about having an option to remove the historic overlay and reissue. Was that part of one of the things you considered?
I don't believe, yeah, come on.
Jake Levitas, Planning and Development. So we didn't talk about the removal of the historic district, but I'll say that wasn't the only constraint that we heard about the Bloodworth site that made it sort of undevelopable or more difficult to develop for affordable housing. There was also parking constraints in the area and the tiers of site plan review that are required to do something above, let's say a duplex or a duplex and ADU. So on those sites, because of their size, also because of the historic district, you'd be able to develop, maybe a couple of units. Whereas on the Easton Cabarrus cluster, especially with sort of a cross-subsidy option, if we're able to dispose of the Bloodworth site and use some of those proceeds to support units on the East and Cabarrus site, there's a more greater likelihood of success of any number of units greater than 0, which is what we have now. So that's what that's how we came to that recommendation, was just seeing that, it seems like there's difficulty making a project work on both of these sites. And so if we could, but especially on the Bloodworth site, but, having that opportunity to do some cross subsidy using the proceeds of the Bloodworth site would make it more viable. And just the last comment I'll say is we're also mindful of the desire to kind of bank as much land as possible for affordable housing, especially close to downtown. So, don't go about recommending disposition of a potential affordable site lightly. There's also, in the disposition process, the opportunity to essentially offer, have an opportunity for a bid to come from either a nonprofit or a state entity, in the broader upset bid process. So that wouldn't preclude that as well.
So it's your professional opinion that even if the HOD were removed from those Bloodworth parcels, it would still not likely be a feasible?
That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, so I thought about this a lot when I was doing agenda review, and I read the backup, and that was why I was suggesting that I think it's important for us to remember when we have this discussion in EDI that this was one of the limiting factors. But from what I read, it wasn't like, hey, if you take this NCOD off, we think we can get affordable housing here. And it sounds like, for me, I think that these small infill lots that have sat empty for decades, I think further holding them is not good for the city. I think we need to get housing here because that'll house someone. And then if we can use the proceeds to then get affordable housing on these other sites, I think that's a good way forward. But I do think we need to remember, and it's not just this site, but I've been in a few community meetings where folks who are living in the Prince Hall district are saying, my roof's leaking or my window is leaking and I can't afford to get a new one because I have to buy one that complies with the NCOD. And so that tugs at my heartstrings a little. But then I hear the folks who rightfully talk about, preserving a district. And so that's why I think we have a lot to discuss in committee. And I don't think that these two sites, knowing that the NCOD is just like a limiting, one condition that's limiting, but not the totality, I don't think we should slow it down or tie it up in that I think it's going to be a longer discussion.
Do we have the appraisal?
Need a few more.
Any other questions we can answer while they're looking that up?
Any other questions or comments?
If we were to go about the disposition of this, what's that timeline? What's that process?
Yeah, good question. So I believe that staff would need a couple months to put together the new RFP, but it would be something that would be released this calendar year, I imagine. So staff could move relatively quickly.
August or September?
Yeah, I think that's...
August or September?
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm.
And the disposed property would go through upset bid?
I believe so, yeah. I think we'd have to check with our real estate folks, but I think that's a typical...
I think with the upset bid too, one of the things we learned last time, we ended up with a parking lot there, and that's what's being used. So if there's an upset bid process, we need to specify what we're using it for. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see that happen again. Councilmember Jones?
I just want to, just for the table, uplift that the RHDC voted on this back in April about the Prince Hall overlay district to not modify. They felt that there are parameters, and while it's not creating, a ton of stuff, that they felt that along with state guidance that the recommendation was to, and it was 11-1 that was voted. So I just want to amplify their voice here, that they've been looking at each one of these parcels and feel that what's in the best interest for the city would be to maintain the district the way it is.
In your absence at the meeting, we sent this to EDI for further discussion.
So just to briefly clarify the sale mechanism, by declaring the property surplus, you're allowing the city to accept bids on it. Those bids could come from a private developer or builder. They could come from another government agency, a nonprofit. Depending on the bids that are received once the property is declared surplus, then you would determine what is the appropriate sale mechanism. Upset bid is the mechanism you use. It's great at realizing the highest possible sale price for the property. because it's a highly competitive process, a highly open process with sometimes multiple rounds of advertisement. However, it does not bind any particular use of the property. You're selling it to the highest bidder, and that's it. They own it fee simple afterwards and can build anything that's allowed under zoning or nothing. And so I think we would need to, before any sale process that would be authorized, we would be back before you with a offer that would, and then a recommendation for what sale mechanism to use. So there would be a separate council action to actually proceed with an upset bid process. You are not authorizing that today. You're authorizing the declaration of surplus.
Okay.
And we did just get the appraisal value. So it was done in 2022, so maybe slightly different, but 306,000 for each of the two parcels. So about 612,000 would be, potentially generated if that's the amount that we receive in a bid. That again, any amount of that could be used to cross-subsidize the other as a project on the other site, and just some very preliminary conversations with developers and getting feedback about that site suggested the gap could be at least that much, if not more, to make a project viable of, let's say, 12 to 24 units, somewhere in there.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask the council, is there consensus to move forward with the staff recommendation?
I'll make that motion. Sorry. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'll make the motion if folks are ready.
Okay.
I move to, hang on. I move to adopt the staff recommended action. Does that work? Is that what you need? I move to approve the staff recommended. Okay, yes.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's Councilor Fort, Jones, and Black opposed. Motion passes.
All right, and the last item today is another exciting project that we've been working on for quite some time. We have Ken Bowers from Planning and Development bringing forward a Moore Square disposition update.
Just testing this, I just learned how to do this laser pointer thing. Anyway, Ken Bowers. Ken Bowers with Planning and Development. I'm here to give you an update for the first time, I think, since we've had this agenda item in front of you since August of last year, as to what's happening and to ask authorization to advance the affordable component of this multi-phase project into the funding process. So I'm going to give you just a brief refresher, since it's been a while since we talked about it, about what is the development program for the site, what's happened since we were last in front of you, give you some context on the affordable component and how that's going to be financed and what the scope and scale of the city's commitment to that project is, and then give you the recommended action. So the sites we're talking about are city-made available, city-owned property on the east side of Moore Square, and then the parking lot and the lots under the Norwood House and the old vegetable market and adjacent to City Market. We're talking about a total of 3 acres on the east side of Moore Square East, which is in play, and 6 parcels and about 1.15 acres on the south. After our selection process, we went with a team for the south side led by Loden Hospitality, the folks behind the Longleaf Inn, among other hotel developments in the city. They proposed a 150 to 160 room boutique hotel that also had a mixed use associated with it, 25,000 square feet of co-working space, audio recording production, and cultural and art space. And then the East program, East site was going to be 160 affordable units, around 400 market rate units at a second hotel, retail including 22,000 square feet for a potential grocery store. And the idea was to partner with the Raleigh Rescue Mission to build them a new building. They are moving the women's services to a different location. That is something they've already raised capital dollars for, and they're now in the planning phase for upgrading the facility in downtown Raleigh, where the men's services will remain. And diving a little bit more into the affordable program, it's very ambitious. It's a It's a building typology that is most commonly associated with higher-end market rate rentals. It's 160 units on a fairly small portion of the land, so a high-density project. The land under it would be ground leased instead of sold to the affordable developer. It would use 4% tax credits as part of its capital structure, and it would use income mixing to get around 15% of the units down to 30% of AMI, and the average across the whole building would be at 60% of AMI. We anticipate the disposition going in 3 phases. The first and most immediate phase is the property that will be under the affordable housing component. We expect the hotel to go second, and then the remainder of the East Block to go third. So what's happened since we were last here? Well, when we were in August, the action we requested for you was to include some additional parcels in the parking lot. The parcel that's under the Norwood House and then the parcels that are in the old vegetable market and its associated parking and loading area. That building has been vacant now for a number of years. Council agreed. They're now all part of the property. We've had it appraised. It came in at $8.9 million, and we're currently negotiating a purchase and sale agreement for this property. As part of that, our development partner, Loden Hospitality, has agreed to move the Norwood House to a site next to the Moore Square Transit Station that's also city-owned, and to do an activation of the Esso Station, which is a historic building in the Moore Square Historic District that would be renovated and reused. On the east side, one of the things that we were doing was our development partner was very intentional. They wanted to expand the site beyond what the city had for sale. There was one property owner in particular that they had a very, very lengthy negotiation with, a long history of family ownership of a parcel that's sort of mid-block there, eastern. It's where this, it's right here where my red dot is. And they have gotten this under option. This property here was bought some time ago by Banner Multifamily, who also bid on this site. They're very, very close to tying up the option on that, and they're currently working with Raleigh Rescue Mission on their plan. So it's looking like they'll be able to assemble the entire block for the redevelopment, which I think will yield a much better project than trying to develop on the oddly shaped parcels that the city had on offer. So the affordable housing component. Let's get a little bit into the numbers. So the first number I want to talk about is the current cost of the 160-unit building based on the developer's pro forma is close to $57 million, which is over $350,000 per unit. And the thing is important to remember in affordable housing finance is that the permanent loan that can be supported by a 60% AMI unit, this depends a little bit on the unit size and mix, is around $100,000. So anything between $100,000 and the cost of producing the unit is the financing gap that has to be filled. So as construction costs go up, obviously that gap goes up. And this is a more expensive building typology with a concrete podium and multi-story wood frame construction and elevators compared to the typical tax credit project. So the gap here is large. Tax credits are filling part of it, but the gap financing request for the city is significantly larger than is normal. Right now, that request stands at $16 million. We are actively working with the developer to see if there are some tweaks we can do to bring that down a bit, but I'll be honest, it's probably not going to come down a whole lot. We might be able to get a little bit lower through some diligence. Where is that money coming from? We're very cognizant that is more than a year's gap financing money under the current housing program. So we're looking to cross-subsidize from the market rate sales into this project. Because of the timing constraints, that will probably mean that the city internally shifts some money around until the proceeds from the sale of the market rate land comes in. But our current estimated value is around $22 million. For all of the market rate land that's part of the deal. So there is enough value there to do that cross subsidy. And I think, this is why historically our gap financing efforts have been primarily walk-up garden apartments. No elevators, no concrete, no steel, just wood frame, light wood construction with surface parking. That is the lion's share of what we've gap financed because it's the lowest construction cost. However, it's hard to build more than 20 units per acre with that type of typology. If you wanted to do that type of typology at 160 units, you would need 2 more squares in order to fit it. Need 6 to 8 acres of land, and we're putting this on a very small component of like under a half acre. So that's why what we're doing, mid-rise downtown construction, has an exceptional cost associated with it. We look at the average subsidy per unit. It can be as low as $20,000 to $30,000 for a tax credit project that's in that walk-up garden typology, and then you get $75,000, $80,000 to $100,000 as you go to the more expensive construction typologies. But those also allow, the upside of that is that by shrinking the footprint of the affordable component, you have much more market rate land left over, and so you're unlocking some of that land value. And when you're in a situation of very expensive downtown land, the value of going denser offsets the increased construction costs because you're able to unlock more of the value for the market rate construction, which is a consideration, I think, as we plan for other sites such as the DMV site. And then affordable housing subsidy requests are influenced by a lot of macro factors in the economy. As interest rates go up, the amount of debt, permanent debt that can be supported goes down because that debt becomes more expensive. We've experienced during the pandemic, and this is yet to really adjust downward, a run up in the cost of both materials and labor, which is driving the hard costs of construction up. Land costs, of course, have gotten a lot higher. If you look at the assessments that are powering our current budget proposal, you will see how much land has gone up in many parts of the city. Household, the 60% AMI income is obviously a function of whatever the AMI is, which is the area median income for the region. If that's not growing as rapidly, then the rents that the development produces do not grow as rapidly either. And then there's just generally less federal and state funding, so more and more local governments are going in to step in to try to fill those gaps. We have multiple goals, of course, for affordable housing, and we draw attention here to goals 4, 5, and 6. This is a site, it's a high opportunity site. It's a block away from the main transfer hub for the Go Raleigh system, so there's no better transit location in the city than here. There is, that's going to only improve as the first BRT line opens and more BRT lines converge on downtown. And this is going to be a mixed income development. Yes, the affordable component is standalone, but it's going to be part of a larger development. So this will not be an isolated affordable housing. It'll be part of a very attractive and vital mixed use place when Moore Square is fully built out. So where we are, this is a little bit about the timeline, is we're in front of you with some authorizations to execute some options with the affordable developer to ground lease the land under the affordable project. That would allow that to enter into the funding process with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, with the city, and with Wake County. By September 2025, we expect that option to be turned into an actual lease and the construction of the building to begin, with the idea that by late 2027, that building would be open and ready for leasing. Phase 2, the city market site, we're currently negotiating the purchase and sale agreement. We would expect to bring that to council for your information in the fall, and then be ready to execute that. Around September 2025 is when the Norwood House would be moved to clear the site of that building. By the following summer is when we would like to complete the disposition of the property. That would be in the same fiscal year as the probably the gap financing outflow, and then looking at 2028 for the actual hotel project to go. And then the phase 3, the purchase and sale agreement would be on a very similar time frame, but the disposition would be pushed back a little bit because of the greater needs to go through a permitting process for that project, which has more phases and is more complicated. And then 2029 and beyond is when the phases of that project would start to open. The various agreements that'll accompany this, there's the option, and then the ground lease for the affordable site. There's the purchase and sale agreements for the city-owned property on the south and east sites. There's going to be development agreements tied to that, particularly for the east site because it's a multi-phase project. And The thing we're asking for your authorization today is for that ground lease. We have negotiated the terms with Moore Square Harmony Housing LLC as the entity that has been established by Harmony Housing. If you're not familiar with Harmony Housing, they're a national nonprofit builder of affordable housing. It was originally a spinoff of Greystone, and now they've acquired Greystone Affordable Development and brought them under the nonprofit. So Greystone was a for-profit developer. Greystone is now part of Harmony Housing, a nonprofit, who is the developer for this project. The option has a term of 18 months, extendable to 24, with closing to occur within 3 months of the option notice date. We will continue to, the option is contingent on them securing the tax exempt bonds from the Housing Finance Agency. For any reason they're unable to do so, the option will expire. The lease terms are a minimum of 75 years. The lease payment is nominal, so the ground is part of the subsidy for this project, in addition to the gap financing request. The tenant, the Harmony Housing, agrees to design and construct the project, to maintain the affordability, to maintain it, and to finance it. So that is all the major terms of that. Our recommendation is to adopt the resolution that is part of your agenda, authorizing the mayor and manager to execute the lease options as described. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
We've been working on this for so long.
Yes, it is a long-term process. The current economic conditions, I think, as everyone's aware, there's a ton of downtown scale projects which are currently, have all their approvals in place but could not move forward due to financing. So that is definitely having an impact on the timeline here. On the other hand, I do think the time we've taken to allow for site assembly is going to end up with a better long-term development result here, because there'll be control of the entire block. There'll be a new home for Raleigh Rescue Mission, a possibility for some neighborhood serving retail, such as a grocery store on the east side, whereas currently the only good food available is on the west side of downtown. This will really be a great resource for all the neighborhoods east of downtown.
Hey, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Sure.
Oh, excuse me, who's that? Councilmember Black. If you'll raise your hand, okay, thank you.
Hi. So I'm still curious about the property on the corner of Person and Hargett Street. It's like a parking lot and then a house, and it's right next to where the existing Raleigh Rescue Mission building is. Have they already acquired that? Because I'm asking because I just text the owner and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about.
These properties right here?
Yeah.
These are not under option, but they have talked to the owners, and the owners have represented that they were amenable to selling. If they're not, then it's the entire block, absent these small corner pieces.
Okay, I was just wondering because I was like, from my understanding, it's not in it yet, but I wasn't sure, so I wanted to ask you.
What is definitely in it is this parcel, and then what's very close to in it is this parcel.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah. Hi, Ken. Thanks for this. I just continue to be super impressed about the strategy used to get a win-win-win-win situation here. I mean, I don't think it's very often that we get to check all of these boxes. So really good work to you and your team. Can you go back to the timeline?
Sure.
This is such incredible work, and seeing that people won't be living here until 2027 is sad.
Right.
Do you think there are any conditions that will speed that up? Do you think if a change to the interest rates by the Fed would progress this timeline faster?
So I think on the affordable component, that timeline is as fast as it can be, and although it's impacted by interest rates and market conditions, it's because its capital structure is totally different from the market rate. It is less impacted, and it's moving forward. The major impact of current conditions is that it's costing a little bit more to produce the project than would otherwise be the case. Would there be a willingness to accelerate? Yes, I think there would be a willingness to accelerate these timelines if there were to be a sudden turnaround in the capital markets for this type of project. I think our partner, has represented to us that their goal is a very high quality project here. They want to wait until conditions are right to deliver 20 stories fronting the park front which right now, because that tips you from wood to concrete and steel, needs a more favorable economic environment to be able to break ground. That, I think the other thing is the details of how we structured these purchase and sale agreements. Our development partner already has money invested in the options that they have secured. There will be money invested as part of these purchase and sale agreements as well. And typically, these can be structured such that there's some incentives to close earlier if that is something that is feasible to do. But we don't want to put an unrealistic timeline on the project and undermine the best possible outcome because we think we can get it a year sooner. That wouldn't be in our best interest. But we do want to make sure that all the parties have skin in the game and are moving forward on a reasonable timeline to deliver the project.
And the LIHTC grants also make that process longer.
They do. There's a certain process to go through it. Because it's 4%, it'll be on a somewhat, more predictable time frame, but it's still a time frame.
Yep. Okay, so there's a motion on the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Ken, for your continued work on this important project. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Awesome, and that concludes my report today.
You've had a long one today. Yes, thank you. All right, next we have the report and recommendation of the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. Thank you for your patience as we work through these big issues.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Christina Bowman, and I'm with the Department of Equity and Inclusion. And I'm here to introduce Philip Woodward, who is the Vice Chair to the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities, and he'll be presenting the committee's work plan.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Baldwin and City Council. I'm Philip Woodward. I'm the Vice Chair and the Public Information Chair for the Raleigh Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. I'm here on behalf of our Chair, Dr. Ricky Scott. He was unable to be here because of his new job requirements, so he asked me to present to you all. If you're not familiar with the Mayor's Committee, I want to give you a little history. Our mission statement is that the Raleigh Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities, hereafter referred to as the committee, works to address the needs of people with disabilities and their families in Raleigh. The committee has been in existence for 4 decades, since the mid-1980s. The leadership of the City of Raleigh has provided the committee with financial support and partnership with city departments to ensure that the city addresses issues and concerns confronting the disability community. I want to share a quote that I found on the internet that I really like. There is ability in every disability. So I'm just sharing that to change the culture of thinking about people with disabilities. Carolyn Blitz said this, and I found it on Google. I want to share some issues that are important to the Mayor's Committee for fiscal year 2025 and goals. The committee would like to work with the City of Raleigh's Transportation Department to ensure that the ADA paratransit system transition to a new software will go as smoothly as possible. A new software launched last year in August 2023, and that did not go as smoothly as people with disabilities would have liked. So we've had a lot of conversations with city transportation staff since then. And other issues of concern for the committee are affordable, accessible housing for people with disabilities. We've heard a lot about affordable housing today. That's great. Opportunity for competitive, integrated employment for people with disabilities, and ensuring that crosswalks, community parks, and other public spaces are accessible for everyone to enjoy. Some events that the Mayor's Committee has planned for fiscal year 2025 are our annual Employer Resource Day event, which is scheduled for the morning of July 11th, 2024 at the McKimmon Center. So if any of you are interested in coming, you can put July 11th on your calendars. And the goal of this event is to assist employers in better understanding strategies and best practices in hiring, accommodating, and retaining employees with disabilities. Another event would be to schedule a Go Raleigh Access meeting in August 2024. We had one in August 2023 at one of the community churches, and it was a very open and helpful dialogue. And so the goal of this event would be to foster a dialogue between citizens with disabilities who use ADA paratransit services and City of Raleigh Transportation Department staff to address any ongoing concerns 1 year after the rollout of the new ADA paratransit system, and to help the Transportation Department staff understand how to implement effective improvements. And then one of our other big events for the year would be our award banquet in October, which is also National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And the goal of this event is to recognize individuals, organizations, and businesses to foster an inclusive and accessible City of Raleigh that provides opportunities for people with disabilities to participate in the economic and social life of Raleigh. Some education programs that the Mayor's Committee is planning is we want to provide education and training to City of Raleigh Transportation Department staff, including call center and dispatch, and also to ADA paratransit drivers on properly serving and accommodating people with disabilities. And we would like to provide feedback to the City of Raleigh Communications Department and information technology staff on ensuring that the City of Raleigh website is accessible to and usable by people with disabilities, because we use the internet now for almost everything these days. We also hope to do community outreach, and every year we have a representative participate in the Raleigh Neighborhood Exchange every September to educate participants about the Mayor's Committee and its mission, and to recruit new members for the committee. Our strategies in doing these events: for the Employer Resource Day, we host a free breakfast to attract a wide number of employers. We have a person with a disability speak, or a panel of people with disabilities speak, to educate employers on how to effectively hire, accommodate, and retain employees with disabilities. And speaking with that lived experience really helps a lot of employers understand the perspectives. I would like to share the proposed budget for the Mayor's Committee. We would like to designate $3,000 towards scholarships. These would be $1,000 scholarships, 3 that we would give out to individuals with disabilities who live in Raleigh, and a graduate scholarship for an individual who lives in Raleigh who will be going to any type of post-secondary education program. And the committee will meet to clarify the eligibility criteria. We award these scholarships every year at the Employer Resource Day event in July, and so that's a picture of a previous award winner with Dr. Vicky Scott and Lori Millett, our former secretary. We would like to request $4,000 for our Employer Resource Day breakfast in July that celebrates the Americans with Disabilities Act anniversary, to recognize the scholarship recipients, and to educate employers on how to accommodate employees with disabilities. We would like to request $7,000 for the award banquet, where we provide a full lunch and the opportunity to recognize people, organizations, and businesses that have enhanced accessibility in Raleigh. And pictured is Mayor Baldwin handing out the award to one of our award winners at last year's event. We always appreciate the mayor coming. We would like to request $3,000 for ADA accommodations. These are accommodations or services such as American Sign Language interpreters, like the one standing behind you all, captioning, braille, large print, and other accommodations that people with disabilities might need to participate in our meetings and events. And finally, we would like to request $1,000 to support recreation for children with disabilities, such as the opportunity to attend Camp Friendly, because many of them come from low-income families who might not be able to afford the camp fees. So I'm going to conclude today by showing a number, 33,361. This is the number of people with a disability living in the city of Raleigh based on the 2022 U.S. Census estimate of the city's population of 476,587 people, with 7% of people under age 65 identifying as having a disability. However, in reality, I'm going to show that I'm a professional who's been working with people with disability for more than 20 years, and I've lived with a disability myself for 41 years. And that number is much larger, and the Centers for Disease Prevention and Control estimate that approximately 25% of the entire U.S. population has some type of disability, whether it's physical, mental, sensory, intellectual, developmental, or any other type. But take that number that we have, 33,361, and imagine being in the PNC Arena for an NC State Wolfpack basketball game. That's more than the seating capacity of the PNC Arena, which is 20,000. So imagine being filled in a room like that with people with disabilities. The picture here is my friend Ronnie Marshall, a former member of the Mayor's Committee, and I at a basketball game there back in 2015. So that would just give you a sense of how many people with disabilities live in the city of Raleigh and work in the city of Raleigh and visit the city every day. Are there any questions? And I would like to thank you all for your time today.
Philip, I just want to
You're
say
welcome.
thank you for everything you do and your leadership on the committee. It is deeply appreciated, and your event every year is so moving. And I mean, there's a lot of tears shed, but that's a real positive thing. And I just want to say thank you for what you do and what the committee does. Councilmember Branch.
Definitely, thank you for your work and the work of your committee. I do have one question of the city manager. Is there 18,000 requests already in our current budget?
I am pretty certain that it is included in some of our agency requests, so yes.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure if I need to do a budget note or not.
Yep.
No, I think we got them covered.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, thank you, Philip, for getting us up to speed on what you all are doing. It's great work. I'm curious, the career fair on July 11th, is that the Raleigh All Professions Career Fair at the McKimmon Center? I was just trying to find it on the internet, and that's what I came up with.
It's not a career fair, although the city of Raleigh may host some career fairs with other agencies. It's an employer resource day event. So basically, we have speakers that educate the audience about hiring people with disabilities and how to best do that. For example, in the past, we've had attorneys talk about the ADA and all of the employment provisions under the ADA so that hiring supervisors and HR staff will know how to properly accommodate a person with a disability in the interview process, how to accommodate them as an employer at the job, at the workplace, like if they need a modified schedule because of the bus schedule, or if they need an interpreter, braille, or things like that. It helps them know if they know the ADA, then they will not get sued. So it helps eliminate potential lawsuits that could happen farther down the road. So does that give you an overview?
Yes.
It's not a job fair specifically, but I'm aware of job fairs for people with disabilities that occur throughout the year.
If it's okay, I'll email you if there's any details to let employers know. I just wanted to get the word out because it sounds like a great event.
We're planning the event right now, so the city of Raleigh will send out a registration link as soon as all the details are ready.
Great, thank you.
So we hope to see you on July 11th and then again in October if you want to come to the award banquet.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay, motion to approve. Second, Council Branch, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you again. That passes unanimously.
Have a wonderful day.
You too, thank you. Okay, now we are moving on to public hearings. The first item is a petition annexation AX 0624. It's 6701 Town Center Drive.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christopher Golden with Planning and Development. Thank you. So this annexation that you mentioned is at 6701 Town Center Drive. It is contiguous with city limits. It's inside the ETJ. It is roughly 15 and a half acres, and it's zoned commercial mixed use, 5 stories with parkway frontage, conditional use, with a scenic highway overlay district, which is a mouthful. The proposed use for this property is a hotel, roughly 56,000 square feet. There is some new residential development around the west, south, and east. Surrounded in the areas, there are multifamily properties, mixed retail, office, and it's just north of Triangle Town Center. And if this were annexed into the city, as you'll see, it would fill in a gap just to the north of Triangle Town Center that's currently not in city limits. You can see the utility location there. There's water and sewer to the site. The current zoning on that, which it's pretty uniform throughout that area. You're looking at commercial mixed use. Currently has a site plan that's under review, and there's no floodplain associated with this property. The site location, as you can see there on the very south bottom, you can just the edge of Triangle Town Center and some townhomes just to the south, and the Beltline just to the north. And then we have a view of the street view showing the site, which is currently forested, and there you have at the corner, and considerable transportation infrastructure around that area, being that it's right close to the freeway and Triangle Town Boulevard. If it's annexed today, it'll be brought into the boundaries of Council District B, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll just bring that right back to the front page.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff? Okay, no one has signed up in opposition on this. We have one person signed up in support, Matthew Hook. That
Yeah, I'm just the developer, that's all.
is that all? Do you want to speak, or are you just here to answer any questions?
No questions, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open the hearing then and close the hearing.
Yeah, I move to adopt this annexation effective immediately.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have rezoning Z7222 at 423 South Blunt Street.
Good afternoon, Council. Robert Tate, Planning and Development. Like you said, this is rezoning request Z7222. You've heard this request on several different occasions, so I'll keep this presentation pretty brief. So the public hearing was continued from April 2nd so that you could hear from RHDC and their recommendation for the Prince Hall Overlay District. Just to refresh you, they recommended to not adjust the boundaries of the district and to update the special character essay. So with that, there has not been an update since September of 23 to this case, and I believe the applicant is here if you have any questions from them.
Councilmember Branch?
Madam Mayor, I know we've already had the public hearing open for this. I did receive some communication from the applicant, and I know we currently have an item in EDI around the Prince Hall Overlay District. I would recommend that this also be sent to EDI to be part of that holistic conversation.
Okay.
And that's my motion.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. We'll send that item to committee when that discussion takes place. Thank you. Okay, next we have rezoning. Oh, and I just want to ask, the public hearing is still open. Is that appropriate, City Attorney?
Real quick, David, your city attorney's office. It would be, do you know when you expect to discuss this at EDI?
Probably be June.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about this during the committee reports. I'm aware there's some scheduling issues, but I talked to Councilmember Branch. He does not anticipate there being a Transportation and Transit Committee meeting in June, and so I was going to ask if we could move our EDI meeting from that Tuesday in June at 1:30, just take the Transportation and Transit slot to that Thursday in June at 3 o'clock.
What date is that? June 22nd at 3 p.m.? 27th?
27th, June 27th.
At 3 p.m., okay. Do we need a motion on that?
Do I need to do that now? What are we doing?
I'm
Yeah, all I
asking,
was going to suggest, as far as the public hearing being held open, it would be appropriate if you're anticipating meeting in a committee in June to defer the public hearing to your July 2nd meeting, and you can make that in the afternoon rather than in the evening.
Okay, so
Yeah, so we need to.
so we need a motion to defer.
So I defer the public hearing to July 2nd to come back to council
In the afternoon.
in the afternoon session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, next we have rezoning Z 2823, and that has been pulled. So we will go to the next item, which is rezoning Z 2923, the east side of Nowell Road.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, we were going to continue. Yes.
Okay.
So we've had a discussion where we would like to continue this and actually
Right.
move it to committee. So we're talking about Now Road, and this would be for GNR committee at the end of June. So that's my motion on this one.
Wait a minute, does staff have anything?
I have no additional comments except that because the public hearing is open, you need to defer the public hearing to a date certain, I guess, after the GNR
So
committee
maybe
meeting.
to July. Okay, same thing as Corey. Sorry.
So we move the public hearing to July 2nd
Thank you.
during the afternoon.
Defer that,
Defer.
and then you want to send it to?
GNR for
Okay.
June.
So your motion is to send this item to GNR and then defer the public hearing to July 3rd.
Yes. Second.
Okay, second. Okay, and you seconding it? It's been a long day. Yes. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you,
Anyone
Isabel.
opposed? So that has been done. Thank you. All right, and then the last item is rezoning Z 5423 South Saunders Street. No one has signed up in opposition.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Matthew Burns with Planning and Development. This is a request to rezone approximately 1/3 of an acre from neighborhood mixed use, 3 stories, urban limited frontage with TOD to residential mixed use, 7 stories, urban limited frontage, conditional use with TOD. The public hearing for this item was opened on April 16th, and the applicant has submitted signed revised conditions, which add an additional condition related to an affordable housing contribution. The request is consistent with the 2030 comprehensive plan and the future land use map, and Planning Commission recommends approval. So the first 2 conditions remain unchanged. The first prohibits certain uses that are otherwise allowed in RX, and the second limits building height in the property to 95 feet. And the new condition proposes a contribution of $90,000 to the city's affordable housing program prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for a new residential unit. Planning Commission finds the request would allow for excuse me, increase land use intensity in the urban core of Raleigh and would encourage vertical mixed use and new residential growth in the area, which is supported by the Downtown West Gateway Plan. Please let me know if you have any questions before resuming the public hearing.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, we will resume the public hearing. Is there anything that the applicant wants to add? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated May 21st, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the report and recommendation of the Economic Development and Innovation Committee. Mayor Pro Tem.
So as I just mentioned, we are going to meet in June. We will not meet this month. We're going to meet in June to take up the Prince Hall Historic Overlay District report, and then I guess the rezoning case that was just referred. There is a scheduling issue on that Tuesday, so I'm going to notice the meeting for Thursday, June 27th at 3 o'clock in council chambers, which is when Transportation Transit normally meets. They will not be meeting, it's my understanding, in June. The other items we have pending are the Economic Development Roundtable with our HBCUs, the Downtown Raleigh Economic Development Strategy, and then a discussion with leveling the playing field on workforce development. And I anticipate we will take those up after the council break in August or as soon as Mr. Raleigh tells me that staff is ready for those topics.
Okay, thank you. Growth and Natural Resources.
Yeah, we have 2 dates on the calendar, items pending for our meeting in May, which is next Tuesday, May 28th at 4 p.m., are the Strickland Road rezoning case, Z4023, and then also a review of litter programs. And then on June 25th, we have tree protection and planting goals, as well as now the Now Road rezoning.
Okay, thank you. Safe, vibrant, and healthy community. I have a question related to the revenue capture options. I didn't know about this. What is that specifically?
Yeah, so I sent that, and I think it was a meeting you had to leave midway through, but it's, we've talked a lot about MSDs. They've been very much in our agendas recently, but I think there are other like funding strategy tools that we have in our toolbox we might not have yet used, and I'd like to understand them further. So that might be something like TIGs or TIFs or other tools like that, and just making sure we're using the right tool for the right job.
Okay, so
it's
there's no
informational, not policy work.
All right, there's no urgency in this, though, considering the budget's going to be approved. It's more like information at this point.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. We are not going to be having a meeting in in May, and we will look at this for a future date. Transportation and transit.
So we have no items and no report. I am aware that transportation will be presenting to us about the Brookside Road project. That item I may ask, depending on the conversation that we have here at the table, that is sent to committee, but at this time we have nothing pending.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have a report of the mayor and city council. I'll start with Councilmember Harrison today.
Yeah, I have a request for council contingency funds, and this is for the Journeyman Mentorship Program for young men. This would be for $15,000, and currently they have been operating some programs in the schools for teenage boys, primarily middle schoolers who are either struggling with academic success or having behavioral issues, discipline referrals. And so it pairs these young men with adult men, to really learn a lot of different leadership skills. So increasing self-awareness, understanding of their impact on others, ability to set and achieve goals, helping them, find kind of their path and where they want to go in life. So I think this is a really great program helping young people around the city. So I'm going to ask for that $15,000 for contingency, and that would be, I guess, for a vote at our next meeting.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fort?
Yeah, I have a request of staff as it relates to a future work session. The UNC School of Social Work, in collaboration with Across Disability Services, have created a tiny home pilot project at the UNC Farm at Penny Lane in Pittsburgh. The purpose of this pilot program is to provide affordable housing options for people with mental illness and other health conditions living on a fixed income. The village includes 15 tiny homes and community amenities and is funded through a public-private partnership. So I would like to request a field trip for City Council for us to be able to go out and take a look at it at a work session, to be determined by staff in terms of the feasibility and logistics to get us all there and back. But I think it would be great for us to have an opportunity for us to go over and tour that and see if there's a way for us to be able to implement something similar here in the city of Raleigh.
Very timely, and I think that it would be a great idea because a tiny home community modeled on that will be coming forward to City Council at a certain point. So let's make that a work session. I love the idea. Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Jones.
Okay, just a few things. First off, a big thank you to the planning department for another amazing tour. Going on site to see what our inspections department does every day was educational and engaging. So thank you guys so much for that. I did want to give an update. City staff and CACs met at the end of April to review options presented to council about how to move forward and to review concerns regarding virtual meetings after a tough meeting with Midtown CAC. We are all scheduled to meet again on June 6th to hear how CACs would like to move forward as they partner with the city. So just giving you an update that conversation is ongoing and it is collaborative with CACs and city staff. I want to make mention that during public comments last week, one speaker was prevented from speaking. The clerk's office has provided a detailed explanation as to what happened and set out plans to ensure that it doesn't happen again. I do want to formally apologize to Ngaza Laughing House Sr. for our mistake and welcome him back to speak at any time. And then lastly, on May 7th, we as council received a request for contingency funding from Beautiful Broken Vessels, which is an organization that has a plan. They work with domestic violence victims, and it's helping them get back on track. And their request is for $9,214 to, over the next year and a half, work with up to 500 residents on a weekly basis, just to get them back on track and working with them. So I do put that as well as Councilor Harrison's request in for council contingency funding. That is for, again, $9,214. And that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Branch.
Actually, just two quick things. One, for Councilor Jones, if you can help me with the CACs and the meetings that they're having. At my District C meeting this past Saturday, there was questions about the process to get inactive CACs active once that plan is together. Can you share that so I can help get it out?
Most definitely. I think that that's part of the conversations that we're having with staff and seeing what our role in that process is or could be. So definitely after June 6th, I'll make sure that we send out a email to everyone letting know what that meeting was about.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, we just had a lot of college students graduate. Well, now we're on the season of high school students. Between now and our next city council meeting, we'll have a number of our high schoolers who will graduate. So I just want to give to all of those students an early, congratulations. To those parents, congratulations. You made it through 18-ish years. I just put ish there because some may have done it in 17. I don't know. But definitely congratulations to all of those students and their new endeavors, to those that will be graduating before our next meeting and those that will graduate after our next meeting. That's all I have.
Councilmember Black?
Yeah, I wanted to thank everyone who came to my community meeting over the weekend. We had some robust conversation. Also, shout out to our solid waste services, who I got to do half of a shift with last week for recycling. That was pretty fun. Highlight of my week, definitely. And then earlier today, I spoke with community organizers who are engaging with members of council and how we can strengthen our allyship with the LGBTQ community. And I'd like to direct staff to look into the list of policy recommendations and requests presented by the community members to give comment on what we are already doing to make Raleigh a more inclusive city and what we can be doing better with our allies for our LGBTQ community. I sent that to the City Attorney's Office. I also want to hear comments on the appetite for the resolution itself.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, and just one thing, at our last meeting, I announced my office hours, but since we firmed up a location, we had to adjust the hours to match the open hours of the small business. So my community meeting my next office hours will be May 30th from 5 to 7 at Little Blue Bakehouse on New Bern Avenue.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thanks. I have two things today. First, it's Bike Month. It's about to come to a close. Councilmember Harris and I met with some members from Oaks and Spokes, and we had a really good conversation about additional advocacy and work we can be doing. But one issue they raised was there's been a increase, and I've noticed this too while I'm out on my scooter, an increase in folks parking in bike lanes downtown in particular. And I'm wondering if we could have staff please look at this issue. I understand we don't have the resources to bolster enforcement citywide, but there are some, I think, high traffic facilities, certainly ones we've invested money in to provide protection and bollards that are frequently being occupied by vehicles. One in particular is in front of the Supreme Court building. It's my understanding from speaking with them that we used to have different bollards there. They were removed for, I think, infrastructure project the court was doing, and perhaps those bollards were not placed back. They mentioned that previously there was not an issue with parking there, but when the bollards were removed, now they're seeing it. So there's a couple places downtown. So if we could look at that and either get it in a manager's update or have it come back to council, if there's any action that you think we need to take, I think that would be very helpful. The second piece is June is Pride Month, and I know many of us on council have been meeting with advocates in the community and with representatives from Equality North Carolina, LGBT Center of Raleigh, about what we can be doing to highlight the work the city's already doing to be inclusive and things we may need to be looking at doing more of. One item that I would like to request from council contingency is $20,000 to support the LGBT Center's care coordination outreach. It's a tongue twister. They have recently moved to, or in the process of moving to, a new center downtown, and they have hired a care coordinator who's going to help with care packages and other outreach to our housing insecure community members. And so this $20,000 would go to support that work, and I'd just like for it to come back to us at the next council meeting for consideration.
Okay, thank you. I have one item. I received a request from our LGBT community to light downtown June 2nd through 9th to celebrate Pride Month. And I think that would be a great thing to do. I'd like to see if we could get our private sector partners as well to join us in that effort. So that's all I have today. And now we will go to appointments.
Good afternoon. Jump right in. First, we have Design Review Commission, one alternate vacancy. Councilmember Jones nominated Claire Craven, so that will appear on your next ballot. Next is Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Centers Authority, one regular vacancy. David Clegg received 4 votes, and in addition, Mayor Baldwin nominated Christine McDonald and Councilmember Branch nominated Max Houseworth. I think it would make sense to go ahead and mention later under nominations, there's 2 more announcements to bundle these in. That'll be 3 total vacancies coming up on your next ballot. That includes the term expirations of 2 members who are ineligible for reappointment due to length of service, Stan Williams and Russ Jones. They will continue to serve until replaced. However, that does bring your total vacancy to 3. So that will come back with all 3 of those names on your next ballot.
Just a correction there. Councilmember Branch's nomination actually will go to replacing Russ Jones, which will come up later. That's the hotel spot that they have. So that will not appear here. It'll appear for the hotel spot.
So unless, it's your prerogative, they would all be bundled together. However, there's no slotted position. So we could separate it out, but generally they would come back in one bundle. And then we could always, make a decision on who would be replaced first, and we could.
I think we need some clarity, though, on what space they're filling, because with the hotel, we had asked, what do they need? And they said with the vacancy with Russ Jones, they need somebody from the hotel industry.
Yeah, just have Matt's name up there. He's from the hotel industry.
Yeah,
We're good.
just note that, hotel industry.
It's fine.
So I can note it on the ballot that that's the intent of who to replace.
Yes.
Yep.
And can I also add, I have someone also from the hotel industry named Kenny Garcia. Can we add him and then Carolyn Briggs Gall to the potential candidate or the candidates for those spots?
Kenny Garcia.
And Carolyn Briggs Gall. They will be submitting applications either today or tomorrow.
Sure. So that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individuals, and then we'll make note of the hotel category or classification on there as well.
I hate to complicate things, but there's also, Stan Williams has represented people who actually use the facility. So I'm going to nominate Jill Heath in that category of users, so we get their perspective as well.
Okay. Jumping down to nominations, Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board, 1 regular vacancy. The term of Marcia Presnell-Jeanette is expiring. She is not eligible for reappointment due to length of service, so she will continue to serve until replaced, and that will come back on your next ballot. Police Advisory Board, 1 regular vacancy. The attorney slot, term of Deontay Thomas, who fills this slot, is expiring. However, you can see he has decent attendance, but we have not been able to determine his reappointment desire.
I can reach out
Mayor
to him.
Pro Tem.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, someone can reach out to him. I just was with him at an event, and he did talk about his work on the board, so I'm assuming he wants to continue. But I would support his reappointment, or do we need to wait to, can we go ahead and do it? And then I would move to reappoint, and we can confirm that.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
And it's been a big meeting. Can I just go back one to Parks Board? This might be for you, Mr. Bentley. I know the Parks Board is working on standing up a nominating committee. Do you anticipate that they will move quickly enough that they would have a recommendation to us for this appointment or not?
I can't speak on their behalf, but their plan doesn't come to you until July 2nd. So for you to adopt their work plan to create the nominating committee.
The nominating committee will be in their work plan, or is anticipated to.
Some form of it. I think that the board chair wanted to talk to you about how best to accomplish that.
Sure. Okay. Got it. So we'll need to make this one without that in mind.
So we resolved police advisory. No, we did reappoint Mr. Thomas. Okay. Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Center, we covered that above. And next is Raleigh Historic Development Commission, 6 regular vacancies. This has been carried over from your last meeting per your request. Total of 4 members seeking reappointment and 2 that need to be replaced. And so the nominations committee has identified 3 potential candidates to fill those 2 slots. You may wish to consider the reappointment of the 4 first. and then consider the remaining 2, and this can either be voted on at the table, or can put it on the ballot. It's really up to you, whatever you find easiest.
I would, oh yeah, I mean, I would make it, well, I mean, I'd be fine reappointing the 4 who are eligible, and then I would like to go ahead and nominate the 3 who are recommended for the 2 slots, and we can do it on the ballot.
Okay.
Do it on the ballot next week, yeah.
All right, so there's a motion then to reappoint the 4 candidates interested. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. And then you're making a motion to put the 3 candidates on, and we will consider them on the ballot.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the nomination for the 3 recommended candidates, and we can look at them on the ballot next meeting.
Okay, second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
And lastly, Substance Use Advisory Commission, a resignation has been received from Joanne Agai, so that will come back on your next ballot.
And can I put Trey Wyatt on the nomination for that position?
Sure.
I've got somebody as well, so I think her name's Alicia Taylor.
Alicia Taylor?
Yeah, she's already submitted her information, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, we'll bring those back.
Okay, next we have report and recommendation of the city attorney.
I'm so sorry. I got an email about the Community Engagement Board, the District E slot, and I didn't know, I thought I was going to do that here to nominate somebody for that slot.
You can. Those, I would have to pull up my book. What she's referring to is we have some upcoming term expirations on the Community Engagement Board, one of which is the District E slot. That individual does not wish to be considered for reappointment, so it would be appropriate for Councilmember Jones to make that nomination. I'd have to pull up when the actual, it's probably late June that those expire.
Got it. So it wasn't now. I'm so sorry.
You could, if you would like, and we can, it would just be not effective until.
I do have a name. So her name is Suzanne Martin, and she'll be submitting her application today as well.
Sure, and how, consistent with how we've handled in the past, those districts slots, the district council member or the at-large, whichever we're referring to, makes that nomination, and the council still does vote on that. So you can either vote on it now, or we can put it on an upcoming agenda, with their information. It's really up to you, and it would be that delayed effective date.
I would say to hold it for a second, just because they haven't even seen her application yet. So if I could just put her name on there to be voted on at a future date, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, city attorney.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I do not have a report, but did want to bring to your attention there's no need to have a closed session at the end of this session. So item BB can be stricken.
Okay, thank you. Report and recommendation of the city clerk.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Actually, 3 items today. First item is just a technical item reporting that the mailings for the various municipal service district property owners was in fact completed. And then you have some minutes that have been submitted for consideration of approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And the last item I have is a calendar issue. So Council, recall you adopt the annual calendar back in December, and then we changed the public comment procedures, which resulted in having a public comment session on the second Tuesday of each month. So traditionally, your break starts at the conclusion of the first council meeting in July. So I do have a suggestion if council is interested. You may wish to consider moving the public comment session for July to Tuesday, July 2nd, the first meeting to be conducted under afternoon session guidelines, and then consider canceling the July 9th meeting if you so desired.
And what about the August meeting?
So council returns from break on Tuesday, August 20th with a work session and council session. And that'll include a public comment session. So we're okay with August.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a second?
Wait a minute. I think you need the August one. Are you sure that, I thought it was scheduled for the 13th. On my calendar has August the 13th, so I'm just making sure.
It would be, what he's saying, it would move to the 20th.
Yes.
That would be the one public
so that's a
comment
motion,
because
right?
we're on break. Yes.
That's what I'm saying, is a motion.
Our last meeting of July would be what day?
Second.
July
Second.
2nd.
And the last public comment for the year, before summer session.
July 2nd.
Would also be
July
that.
would also be July 2nd.
But at 7?
No, afternoons, under afternoon guidelines.
It'd be like today.
Yeah, just mirror today's session, yes.
I think it should be at 7.
There's a motion, we need the motion is to move the meeting, the public comment meeting to the 2nd of July.
I don't want this to be a fight. I don't particularly care about the time. I think it should just be it should revert to the July 2nd, so that everyone can have their full summer break. And then the one in August sounds like it's going to be on the 20th. So I care not about time. I just care about the
Then
date.
let's just say, move it to the 2nd at 7 PM. We'll start the night meeting with that. And then August 20th would be daytime meeting when we return.
Wait, do we need to clarify, because our evening public comments, we budget more time, so we have to clarify probably
It'll follow the process.
allowance.
It'll follow the process for that meeting.
Okay, so then we won't start our business for the evening session until,
Yeah, I think
9 or
it's just
10?
going to be like the old way. It's just going to have to happen this month, because it's either that or we do it in the afternoon, but there was some discomfort in the afternoon. But if you have discomfort at 7, then we can have a conversation. I just think it should be July 2nd at some time.
Exactly.
My preference, I think, would be for it to be at 7 o'clock, because we're canceling an evening one. If that means we're here late on July 2nd, we're here late July 2nd, and then we all go on summer break for 6 weeks. So
Including staff. So they will need the break. So there's a motion on the table. It has been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, everybody has clarity on that then, correct? All right. Thank you, and it's been a long day. Appreciate it. We are now adjourned.